back, ladies and gents, for another week of the New Zealand HyperFibre Esports League. Ladies and gentlemen, this week we're going to be heading across to Phillip Island for the Enduro round. Everything else is going to be a sprint. There's more points on offer, a little bit of a change to the format. One race here tonight. That also changes up qualifying just a touch as well, because it means we can run over the end of the session, which, you know, it just adds a little bit more something to it. So, ladies and gents, it's time to get in, settle down in with the drivers. I'm Scotty Rankin-off alongside Reese Gardner, and after 2 weeks of incredible action, Reese, it's been fun right the way through, and I think we've got another barnstormer here tonight.
Oh yeah, I'm certainly anticipating that as well. Hi everyone, welcome to the broadcast on NZ Sim Racing TV. We started off the season at Road America, and then we jumped over to Germany for a round at the Hockenheim Ring. Now we come down to the Oceania region. Phillip Island, just off the coast of Victoria, a classic circuit indeed, and we'll go into more detail about it very, very shortly. But for now, you're right, it is the endurance round of the season. We've got a 75-minute race, single race, on the cards for this one. Unlimited laps, of course, in the 15 minutes of open qualifying yet to come. 50 laps is the distance for this race. There is no compulsory tyre change, but you might want to change the tyres at some point, depending on how hard you work them around this circuit. The fuel is going to last approximately 36 laps, so the drivers will at least have to pit for fuel. The question is, when do you do it?
Yeah, and is tyre going to be the more important aspect to keep half an eye on, or is it going to be that fuel? Where is everyone going to fall on that scale? Is a question we're going to be asking all night long. So, as we're digging our way through the session at the moment, here's what we're looking at in terms of things. 50 laps from that race session. That's going to be the big one. Who will make it the journey? Who will opt to go for a little bit of an undercut strategy? Who will get aggressive? And who will play it conservative? They always take just a little bit of an adjustment in terms of the racing. Last couple of weeks, we've been talking about reverse grid formats. We lose a little bit of that tonight. It's one race, all the points from that one race, though.
Yeah, exactly. Double points for this round, which means if you're in the hunt for the championship, then you're going to have to be very careful to get a good result from this particular night of racing. Obviously, in a conventional round, you know, points are given out in both races, and race 2 is worth a little bit more because it's longer. Well, now all the points are combined in a single race, and getting that result is more important than ever. So the likes of Antal Sabo is at the top of the standings. I mean, he's going to want to cap this off with another victory from what's turning out to be a very good season for him. And those chasing him, well, the pressure will be on.
And it's got to be tonight. If you don't put the challenge down tonight, well, it might just be all but over, and Sabo might just romp away to a championship win. On the flip side of that, though, if Sabo has a bad night, well, anything could happen. It really is on for anyone, and that's the thing with endurance races. There is no resetting. There is no opportunity to score points in one of the two races and just sort of cover and do the best you can in the other one. It's going to come down to everything that you can lay it on the line. Qualifying will be getting underway here in about 15 minutes. So it'll be a little bit longer for the drivers to be participating in terms of the practice session as we've seen thus far. And I think one of the biggest things tonight, Reese, is that there's going to be a fan voting challenge going on over on all of our social medias as well to connect better with the racing fans. I think that's such a key thing, is we have a unique opportunity in sim racing, and we have a unique opportunity with social media-based streaming services to really connect with our fans. There's a lot that gets talked about parasocial relationships and streamers, but we get that opportunity to closer connect with the racing community at large, and you guys could be walking away with a little something for your efforts, or getting your driver a little something for their efforts tonight.
Yeah, indeed. Of course, Playtech is the sponsor for this particular round. The Playtech 225. Of course, we're happy to welcome Playtech on board as a sponsor for this round. The driver with the most votes for their favorite livery from the fans is going to be one Playtech custom PC case design from that viewer vote. Just fill out the entry form in the comments section to vote for your favorite livery design from tonight. And there's plenty to choose from here tonight. Some very high quality paint jobs on these cars.
Yeah, I mean, that's the passion, right? You love the car, you love what you've put together and go out and race, so you put a fair bit of work into it to make sure that it is as big and as bright and as bold as it possibly can be. And make sure that you get in, you participate in what's going on in terms of the voting here tonight, because it's going to be so crucial. And the other big thing as well is, this is part of the service that Playtech does offer, which I think is phenomenal. Everyone wants that custom little bit that goes in their gaming room. I have my big old glass panel on the side of my PC, and I would love some designs. Not quite close enough to Playtech, don't have the budget for me at the moment, but they use a cutting-edge UV printer, the only of its kind in New Zealand, to print remarkable, robust designs directly onto the chassis of PC cases. And if you have a custom design on the side of your PC, you know that you are the envy of all of your gaming buddies. How cool is that?
Yeah, absolutely. A custom design is certainly something that I'd be looking for, and Playtech will be able to offer that to you. There's also a promotion on for Playtech until the 13th of October for Cherry Blossom season. You can add the Sakura design to any of Playtech's core gaming systems for no extra charge. They've been in the industry for over 30 years. They offer their personalized services. They build custom gaming PCs that exceed all expectations. Magnificent stuff. And yeah, once again, the details are down there in the bottom right corner just before. Go to the URL and submit your vote for your favorite livery here tonight for a chance at winning a custom PC case from Playtech. It's going to be fantastic to see who gets that driver vote, because yeah, like I said, some brilliant liveries out there.
Yeah, and the big thing, and this is sort of where I know Playtech best from, is and their brand connection. They've connected with probably one of my favorite YouTube groups, which is Viva La Dirt League. I share their videos pretty much the instant they come out, and Playtech were right there and on board with working with those guys to come up with some incredible content across the years. And if that doesn't say what a wonderful brand Playtech are, nothing really will. But if you haven't seen it, the Viva La Dirt League guys over on their YouTube channel, incredibly funny, incredibly hilarious, and capture the moments of gaming incredibly well, as well as working in the gaming industry, which has been phenomenal. It's just those sorts of things, you don't get the opportunity to work with or get a brand that is willing to work with groups like that. And to that level, and that really, cemented for me that if there was ever an opportunity to work with Playtech in the future, I'd absolutely take that on. So yeah, big shout out to Playtech, because I think the partnerships work for them as well. The fact that Playtech are a name right globally, internationally, because of a YouTube series they supported, that's marketing 101 right there.
Yeah, certainly is. Playtech also providing the trophies for first, second, and third overall in the season. Let's hear from them quickly.
that is all the latest from Playtech, and big shout out to them once again for not only providing the trophies but also being a supporter of the series. But ladies and gentlemen, to bring us into the first of our main shows here tonight, we're going to be doing the Phillip Island track guide. Reese, why don't you take us for a walk around Phillip Island?
Yeah, it's a pretty fast walk. Phillip Island, the fastest circuit in Australia. It's been around since the early 1960s and has only had one real layout change. The first section of the track has stayed the same. Down the start-finish straight, flowing through Doohan Corner, and then down to Southern Loop. A very difficult corner to get right. You want to try and keep the weight on the fronts through this corner. There's a crest that you go over in the middle of the turn, which can send you very wide and off into the grass. Then you build up the speed once again through the left-hand bend of Stoner for Casey Stoner, 2007 MotoGP champion, and then down into Jack Miller Corner, the hairpin here that is the only part of the circuit that was changed in 1989 for when the track was renovated. This is Siberia. Long flowing left-hander with camber on the inside. You can hold the outside line through there if you play your cards right, and then it's flat out almost all the way up to Lukey Heights here through the hay shed. A fearsome right-hand bend, building up the speed, and then here is Lukey Heights. Up the hill, you're braking, you're turning, you're trying to keep the car rotating across the crest. You don't want to understeer off because you have to stick to the left-hand side for the entry to MG, one of the slowest corners on the circuit. And the exit is incredibly important through the second last corner here, building up the speed. Careful not to apply the throttle too early, otherwise you'll understeer off into the gravel. And then just a lift in near top gear for the final corner. Get back on the power. Hope that you've carried enough speed for the run to the start-finish line. That is a lap around Phillip Island. A very simple circuit, but sometimes the simplest things in life are the best, are they not?
Oh, they are, and I love this place for a couple of reasons. This one holds a little bit of special memory in my neck of the woods, just purely because this is where I got my first ever iRacing official race win. So, you know, everyone's got moments, and when you think about the sim and what brings us together as sim racers, everyone has one of those stories like that where you just go, I just remember that moment, and this track has one of those for me, and that is what makes it that little bit extra special, is that we can build our own moments. I love that about sim racing, is that no matter who you are, you remember your first, you remember the big ones, you remember your driver, the time that you drove through the field, and we've seen a few of those here this season in terms of the HyperFibre Esports League for New Zealand Esports and HyperFibre as well. We'll see if this lap for Russell Pepperell is going to be HyperFibre fast as he starts to set a new one. A lot of drivers are doing qualifying practice at the moment, and I don't blame them because I think it's going to be a really, really important session. You can tow, but you've also got to make sure that you're ahead of a lot of the junk here too, Reese, isn't that? And probably time that we have a little bit of a look at our championship standings as well.
Yeah, indeed. Currently in the lead of the championship is Antal Sabo in the number 92. Corey Lazarus, though, only 6 points behind him, and Stefan McCartan is pretty close as well. Could be potential for a big point swing with the fact that this round is a single race worth double points. Drivers like Ewan Baker and Hugo Allen especially, who was incredibly quick at round 1, just couldn't get the result he wanted in round 2. Well, he's down in 5th in the championship and quite a ways behind in terms of the general points format. 25 points that he has to make up. Well, he could do that tonight.
Yeah, it's a difficult night. It's going to require some things to go wrong on terms of our front end of our group. This is what it looks like a little bit further back, though. Xavier Simmons and Hamish Cleland sits outside the top 10. Cleland currently not seeing him in the racing service, so I think he's going to drift a little bit further back, unfortunately, something keeping him away here tonight. Cameron Dance has not had a great start to the season as well. He's been involved at drama at both of the rounds, so unfortunately for Cam Dance, it's on the back foot. Rob Henry's got a quick car here tonight as well. He sits currently second fastest in terms of our practice session, but 14th in terms of the points. He'll be looking for something to drag himself a little bit further forward. Taylor Mitchell, Luke Bradley, a bunch of names there towards the back end, and then this is what it looks like outside the 20.
Indeed. Dan Turner rounding up the 26 drivers that have set points so far this season. Just goes to show you with the very narrow gaps through a lot of the field here. Actually, all things considered, the biggest gap between two positions in the whole field is the gap between Cleland and Dance, so 12th and 13th. They're separated by 13 points. Everyone else has point separations in pretty much the single digits. So just goes to show how close the point standings are coming out of round 2. We only have 2 rounds to go here. Of course, these are the finals stages of a tournament that is stretched out over the last month or so.
Yeah, and it's, you know, it's coming down to crunch time, isn't it? So, you know, if you weren't set up, you didn't get the best start of the season that you're necessarily looking for, well, now you've got some work to do in front of yourself. And the thing is, when you get a series like this that's going on and then going on for a while, it's gonna drag people in. All of a sudden, people just get that bit with that burst of emotion, that burst of energy, and they get suckered back in. They really, really want to chase things, but they might not have been as prepared for the start of the season. Shoes on the other foot for a few of those guys. Season did get off on the front foot, and then they sort of fall off a little bit. So this is sort of the round where things will come a little bit different. And endurance racing, it gives a lot of opportunities. Minute and 30 seconds, well, you know, it's a medium length lap. It's not a short lap, it's not a long lap. 50 laps means that there's a lot of opportunity for lap traffic and cutting your way through the lap traffic nice and quickly and effectively. The other side of that coin, a lot of fuel on board for a race like this. You've already talked tire wear race. I think there's going to be a few guys that get caught out by things here tonight, particularly timing. Are we going to, with 35 laps in terms of fuel, we've got to get 15 laps in. If we see a safety car less than 15 laps in, there'll be a few guys at the back of the field that'll come down to shorten their pit stops up. We could see some different bits and pieces of strategy.
Yeah, indeed we could. The race has a time limit of 1 hour and 45 minutes, and I don't think we're going to be in any danger of hitting that. 50 laps without any safety cars should take about 1 hour and 15 minutes to complete, and a safety car will only cost us, I'd say, about 5 or 6 minutes at the most. If there's multiple safety cars, then we might have to start looking into potentially going time certain. In terms of temperatures, which is going to be the biggest factor for tire wear, the track's actually reasonably cool. It's mostly cloudy out there on track at the moment, fairly overcast in many places. It is typical southern Victoria weather, really. The track is 27 degrees Celsius, air temperature of only around 20. So what that tells me is the drivers are going to have a lot of trouble getting their tyres up to temperature in qualifying, and if they decide to change them during the race. But the tyres should last a little bit longer than I expected. It's going to be very important. Phillip Island's a track with so many fast corners, so many turns that put a high load through the tyres, and I'd say a pretty rough surface as well. So this track loves to eat tyres for breakfast, lunch and tea.
I'll give you something else a little bit on top of that. I'm just having a quick look at what the session's temperature graphs and the weather looks like for this afternoon. Precipitation chance, there is a chance of it, but I'll give you some more information on that. Practice session, which is underway at the moment, runs from about 10 a.m. to about 10:45. Then qualifying, we skip forward to midday. Midday to about 12:15 is what we're looking at from them. The warm-up session is going to be probably right in the chunk of the worst rain. That sits in between 2 and 3 p.m. at about 2:30 to 2:45 p.m. in sim time. So I'm talking in sim times, obviously not realistic times. We're sitting anywhere in that time period from about 25 to 28% chance of rain. Overall, the entire chance of rain across the race session up around the 30% mark, 28 to 30% sort of mark. It's all in the first half of the race. Right, so 3 to 4 p.m., there's sort of a 45 to 50-minute window there. And if we're saying that this race isn't going to get towards that hour and 45-minute mark, well, that could be 2/3, 3/4 of the race. If we run green the whole way, could be wet or just a splash wet. This is, I think we're going to see rain. I think to start the session, there's going to be a lot of ponding. And the problem is it's not going to get heavier. It's not going to get lighter for a very, very long time. So we're going to see a very stagnant. And then about 2/3, 3/4 of the way through the race, we're going to potentially have a crossover period, something to keep in the back of your mind. Qualifying isn't necessarily going to set what we think these guys' race pace are. That is a dry track. That is a bone dry track for qualifying. Then we get into the rainy stuff. And I think the warm-up session is actually going to be significantly more important than a fair few of these. It's their only opportunity to assess the conditions.
Yeah, indeed it is. So get out on track in warm-up if you can. But for now, it's time for Men in Racing Products qualifying. 15 minutes. Brought to you by MRP, who's also providing the Pole Position Award. The person who runs the fastest time in qualifying, starts up the front, will get a $60 MRP store voucher. So let's see who'll be able to grab that. For the time being, Antal Sabo has been the man to beat in the league overall, but he's left it quite late to jump out of his pit box. He's only just got going there now, as you can see. I think he's just leaving himself a bit of time because, you know, there was a whole gaggle of cars that went out there at the start of the session. Maybe he just wants the track all to himself so he can focus.
Well, the thing is, he's going to be prepping his tyres. I think we saw it last week. He was prepping his tyres for about 3 laps or so and then went, right? So he's going to be gauging where he wants to be. I thoroughly agree with this choice. I think he definitely wants to be out there on his own, in his own sort of area on the track. And the other thing is, he's a championship leader. Everyone else is sort of going to be watching him. If he's sitting all the way back here, there's no one with eyes on him. So he may just whack out. The guys will know when... about if it is going to be lap 2, if it is going to be lap 3 on the tyre, and that's sort of where the best condition of the tyre is, they'll sort of know when they're expecting the best times to come out from him. So it's not like they need to watch him like a hawk, but he just, it just plays in your mind a little bit.
Yeah, certainly does. I've just seen some drivers have a very adventurous start to qualifying. Both Russell Pepperell and Cameron Dance ran wide out of the final corner, took a trip across the grass on their way to the start-finish line. But the majority of drivers have started their first hot laps. You do see times on the board here, but that's because the pit exit at Phillip Island is just before the start-finish line. So your out lap is technically timed. Those times that you see on the board there are not representative of what we're going to be seeing from the drivers. The fastest time in practice belonged to Ewan Baker, 1 minute 29.597. So look for drivers to be setting around the 1 minute 30 mark to really start things off.
I'll tell that to Stefan McCartney. He's sitting there going, can we just call qualifying right now?
Yeah, exactly. The milk carton currently on provisional pole as Antal Sabo immediately goes to second on his out lap time. Yeah, Stefan would be very happy if qualifying was suddenly red flagged out of nowhere. But for now, we keep an eye on Ewan Baker here in a little bit of traffic on his way to the start-finish line to finish his first hot lap. Ewan, one of a few drivers today who is running in virtual reality, which can be beneficial around Phillip Island. Plenty of fast corners and a couple of 180-degree corners as well that you need to be able to see through. There's the first few times there. McCartan's still on provisional pole, which is crucial.
Yep, so he's only got it by about 0.06 of a second at the moment. So Mitchell's put through a few more reasonable laps. Sabo's drifted all the way down to about 9th or 10th, so those lap times have come out nice and early. Xavier Simmons come out and set a really, really nice lap as well, but the field's not very spread. They're quite close together in terms of what their times are looking like at the moment as well. Just sort of thinking about it, and this is the tricky part about virtual reality. One of the biggest advantages of virtual reality, and I only heard this recently, was your ability to sort of look around the car and go, have a look at the mirrors, really build a 3D picture of exactly the space that you sit in, right? And that's the biggest strength about it, is you know exactly who's around you and exactly how far away. One of the smallest issues with it, this could just be a thing with virtual reality tech and where we are with it, is it does wobble a little bit, right? It's not quite as precise as you necessarily want. Sabo goes to the top by a comfortable margin at this point in time. One of the biggest issues that, and initially when VR tech came out, everyone went after it. All the higher level guys went after it. Oh, wow, look at all this. What they actually found was that their consistency went away. And it's because you can't precisely pick up where your brake markers are, because just that tiny little bit of wobble and things in terms of it. Whereas a fixed 3-monitor setup is you know exactly what you have every single time you rock in there, and the consistency was just a touch better. So there you go. I'll talk about technology.
Yeah, very interesting points that you raise as Baker goes to the top now. It's another 0.3 over Antal Sabo there. The pace is dropping here in qualifying as the sun comes out. Yeah, it's a thing in all of esports, really. You know, I've heard you say it yourself, pixel perfect. You know, you want to try and match up what you see on the screen perfectly in order to perform the actions you need to win. And that is just as relevant in sim racing as it is in any other kind of esport.
Well, we talk about refresh rates in shooters, right? We talk about delays. We talk about the ability to get. You talk about RTS games. It's micro. It's the actions per minute, right? All of these little things, and sim racing's one of them. Is the other thing about VR and where it is the refresh rate is quite low at the moment, and the graphic intensity is quite high. So that puts a lot of extra heat in the sim room. Again, just takes away from that ability to be as consistent as we're going to see Rolly off the track at the moment, just making a couple of mistakes. So it's just all these little things, and everyone will sit there and go, oh, it doesn't matter. Well, they actually kind of do. If you compare a race car to a race car, roll cage will be slightly different, the way that the car and the chassis set up is slightly different, but it all comes down to you've got a helmet on, and the only thing between you and the racetrack is a visor and a windscreen, or in some cases, not even a windscreen, right? So it does actually matter. The difference between real racing and sim racing is there is that technology barrier and that technology difference, and there is some of that in the real world racing, but I think the disparity is quite a lot larger in sim racing. But yeah, it's just an interesting discussion topic.
Yeah, certainly is. We'll definitely have some opportunities to chat more about that later on as Xavier Simmons once again improving, getting into the 29s. We have our top 7 drivers all covered by about 0.4 of a second as, wow, there goes Hugo Allen to the top. Here we go. Hugo wasn't too happy with how things went for him at Hockenheim, ended up finishing a lap down due to a disconnection, but he is back and in a big way taking provisional pole.
Yeah, and I was just watching Antal Sabo, who's on a reasonably quick wrap. He's going to pick up some toe, but he understeered at the final corner and the car wiggled all around. So I don't know if he's going to quite be able to get the pace out. 29.553, so he does improve, but the lap, I reckon there's, you could say, I think he was capable of 4 on that lap, and there was a couple little errors throughout the lap. So again, this is what it takes to compete at this higher level, right? Is you really got to be pushing all the markers, all the little bits of margins. It's every tiny little thing up and down the grid. Does matter. Have a look at all the drivers that sit from Stefan McCartan all the way to Rob Henry. We have 4 drivers that sit in a 129.8. We have 4 drivers covered by less than 1/10 of a second, and it's 600ths of a second. Actually, you can throw it out to Taylor Mitchell. He's a 918 and Stefan McCartan's an 821. So there's 97 thousandths of a second, and that covers 5 drivers.
Yeah, that's incredible numbers right there. Everyone covered so closely here, and we still have a good portion of qualifying left to run. There's a big improvement from Dance, going to 4th with a 29.8. So, well, once again, the margin continues to improve there, but it looks like none of them are quite up to the task. Catching up to Alan, Sabo, and Baker. Big improvement from Dylan Jordan as well, getting up to 7th place and a mere 0.6 of a second behind his twin brother.
Well, he was 1,000th of a second ahead, and then somebody else went and improved as well. There's a bunch of drivers now down to the 5s, and Sabo slipped back to 3rd. Lazarus jumped out of the 6. He was a 6. I believe, sorry, he was an 866, so he was 1,000th of a second behind Dylan Jordan. Now he's improved into the 5s, and he's only 4 thousandths ahead of Sabo in the meantime as well. Sabo's just taking a lap just to cool off his tyres, and he's going to be going again this time. I do wonder whether or not it's going away from these guys. It's tight right the way throughout the field. Remember how I said it was 6 drivers or 5 drivers covered by 1/10 of a second? Well, make that 7.
Yeah, exactly. Cameron Dance on a 29.803 in 5th place, and then Xavier Simmons on a 29.903 down in 10th. That's pretty incredible. And Taylor Mitchell only just outside that margin. Ewan Baker, meanwhile, has improved. Hasn't granted him any extra positions, but he is down into the 29.5s along with Allen, Lazarus, and Sabo. So Antal, I'm waiting to see what kind of response he's going to have. We expected Lazarus to be up there as Simmons goes to 7th. Lazarus has done very well, especially at Hockenheim, where he finished a very strong 2nd place in both races, I believe. So he'll be looking for a big result here at Phillip Island, and if those qualifying standings remain the same, I'm not expecting they will, but it'll put him on with a good foot in the race to try and catch up to, maybe pass Antal Sabo for the championship lead.
Well, think about it. Anything could happen in this race, wet conditions, anything could happen. Someone could come from nowhere. They've just mastered wet racing. And this is a tricky track to drive around in the wet, right? So with changeable conditions, this is going to be a big challenge here tonight. Qualifying is important. It certainly sets you in a really good position. And then you can just be a lot more careful if you're out front, right? And in the wet conditions, if you've got a little bit of an advantage. But we're going to be cold tires, lap 1, turn 1 in wet conditions. I think we're going to see an early safety car. So again, I want to be ahead of that. I want to be ahead of the junk. So qualifying, again, becomes, I think, more important. And we've got 4 drivers on 1:29.5, by the way. 4 drivers with less than half a second covering them.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy stuff. Well, we'll see who can make an improvement, if any, in the last 4 minutes of the session. Henry does improve, gets up from 11th to 7th, and Hayden Kirk will set his next time. Looks like he's just starting off a lap here from down in 16th place. Now, Kirk in the 3.71. His fastest lap in practice was a 1:30.59, so he's already up on what he said in practice, but he'll be wanting a little bit more. Crucially, a little bit of cloud has just gone over the racetrack, so it'll start cooling back down a little bit. It went up to 29 degrees Celsius in the sun. Now it's back down to 28 as Hugo Allen improves on his fastest time, is now in the 29.3s. So what that tells me is we're going to be looking for improvements from just about everyone in the next few minutes.
Yeah, I think we are, and there was a bunch of drivers that just dived back to pit lane to put on some fresh tyres, probably about halfway through the session. McCartan was one of them, Dance was another, so I think what they were trying to do was burn some fuel out of the car. They'd obviously taken the crest out of the tyre or taken the best life out of them. Then they're diving back into the lane just for a little bit of fresh rubber. Allen's gone through instead of 3.23, so, you know, all of a sudden we've got a marker now out at the top, and that sets it down for a bunch of people to chase. I do wonder whether or not Sabo was cooling those tyres, in fact, even a 31. So either he's an off track, or he was just cooling the tyres. Maybe he went a little bit too hard in Sector 1, Sector 2, it was still there, and then he lost it, and he just took a moment to just take some energy out of that tyre. What's Kirk? Yeah, that's not going to count.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you run a bit wide out of the final corner, and that's what happens. Rob Henry, meanwhile, up to 6th place. He's put McCartan all the way back down to 7th on his most recent lap. Daniel Patterson, meanwhile, down in the midfield, trying to make some kind of improvement on 14th place. All he needs is 5,000ths of a second, and he'll be starting lucky 13th. So the lap yet to be set for him as he begins anew. And, well, 2 minutes to go. The sun has come back out a little bit. The track remaining at 28 degrees Celsius, but that little bit of reprieve from the clouds running over the circuit. I think if any driver wasn't on a hot lap at that time, it might have been a tiny opportunity missed.
Yeah, I can tell you, Sabo, I think, might have just missed an opportunity to start another lap as well, because he was trying to let Cam Dance go through. Dance is still trying to bring those tyres up to temperature, so that's going to be an interesting... he's up to pace out the final corner, so you do have to lift through the final corner. It's not just carry the throttle and just be quick all the way. Patterson trying to set some lap time as well, and something else I was also having a look at was just some facts about Ewan Baker as well. Did you know that Ewan Baker shares a birthday with Charles Leclerc and Casey Stoner? And apparently Charles Leclerc and Casey Stoner share the same birthday. So I learned something today.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's a twofer right there. So that is one opportunity for you and Baker to say, hey, you know, I share a birthday with these guys. Maybe I have the same level of talent. And I mean, 4th place, certainly showing some great talent in what's proven to be a very competitive field. We'll see what Patterson can do here in the final couple of corners. You want to try and enter this as fast as you can, get that speed at the apex, get it rotated, but as soon as you get on the power, the front end just washes out. You need to be so careful down the straight here. Well, the lap is set at a 1:30.5 for him. That's a little bit off what he would have wanted, but he has enough time to come around and set another time before the session ends. 30 seconds to go, and that'll be his last opportunity. Oh dear, that's a big spin there for Corey Crowson. Brendan Partridge, meanwhile, from outside the top 20, improves to 16th.
I was just going to say on Daniel Patterson's behalf, he's only been sim racing for 5 months, about 5-6 months. So he's very, very new, and he's already made this field. He's been getting a lot of coaching from Hugo Allen, and you can see it's absolutely working on him. Now it's just about setting himself in. The big thing is when you look at the guys in the middle and the back of the field, if they're sort of that level and they're trying to bring themselves forward, you go making this field was a win. That was the first big tick. The rest of the season, I'm just going to run. I'm going to chalk up laps. I'm going to get the racecraft going, and I'm trying to just improve myself 2 or 3 spots every single race. That's the big thing. And a big one is at the endurance races, because if you improve an endurance race, you didn't just have the short run pace, you didn't just get lucky, you were there and nice and consistent. It's the only way to move forward in enduro.
Yeah, I think this round is going to be one of the big proving points to see who really has it in them for racecraft and getting results. It always tends to bring out a different kind of skill, does endurance racing. Well, checkered flag is flown. Antal Sabo brought it into the pits and wasn't able to set another lap, and a bunch of drivers coming into the pits now. Rob Henry, Mandela Pluck, Xavier Simmons, Ewan Baker, none of them are going to improve. Hugo Allen stays out on track. Patterson does not improve. Will Hugo Allen improve on his provisional pole time across the line? And that is a 1:29.27. So taking pole position and the MRP pole position award, $60 store voucher in style for Hugo Allen.
Cam Dance, I think, still on a lap, but I don't think it's necessarily going to be a great one. There's a couple drivers down at the tail end of that lap at the moment that are sort of pushing on. Lazarus is done, so I think that's just about going to be the session. And yeah, for Hugo Allen, another dominating performance. That's 3 pole positions from 3 races. He is just on top of the world. Now if he can just stick the races together and just get those results, he'll be very happy with things. Dance was able to set a 29.886 on his final run of qualifying, which was about half a tenth away from where his previous best was. So no improvement for him. But I think that's a return to form for Cameron Dance. I don't think we've seen the best of him thus far in this series, and I think he's got a point to prove tonight.
Yeah, I think he has too. Honestly, you know, I've been commentating Cameron Dance for many years now. I've even commentated alongside him on many an occasion, and I know how quick he is. And every round so far, I've been looking at him and thinking, why is he so far down? He should be further up. Well, maybe, yeah, this is his opportunity. Corey Croson there rounding out the field 2 seconds back. He'll be hoping for some better luck in the race. Well, now we are going to make sure that we have our pole position winner in the server with us for a little bit of a chat. It seems that we're just waiting on Hugo Allen to jump on in, and I'm sure that Allen's going to be very happy with this one. He's gotten his night off to the best possible start after that absolute disaster at Hockenheim.
Yeah, I think he's going to be very, very happy to sort of. I mean, the other side of the coin is from Hugo Allen, who's going to join us at the moment, is 3 pole positions from 3 races. So short run speed is brilliant, Hugo, but it's just getting that race tied down and managing to lock things in is the big issue at the moment. I mean, last week was obviously a network issue, but hey, man, another opportunity tonight for. Is there a switch to HyperFibre on the cards?
For sure. I think it's just for the rest of the season. It's just about kind of making the most of what I've got and trying to get back as many points as possible. I think to say that I'm still in the championship fight I'd probably be lying. But yeah, you never know what happens. I'm just gonna keep doing what I want to do and win races. And yeah, stuff happens. Like last week, I had a game crash, so. It happens, but yeah, I've had a big reset of the PC, so hopefully today it won't happen in the big old race.
Mate, in terms of things, I mean, you're still sitting inside the top 5 in terms of championship standing, an opportunity to claw back a couple spots and at least earn something back from the remainder of the season. But the big thing I think tonight is that there's a fan vote on out there for best livery on the night. So if you're sitting here and you're saying, what's the reason that your livery is amongst the best, and can you appeal to any of those fans to vote for you?
I didn't come up with my livery. In fact, I can't even see my livery on my screen. But you guys will see it. But yeah, I actually quite like my livery. I like the white, and I'm running the matte white wheels as well. So I think it looks quite class.
In terms of Phillip Island here tonight, like you said, it's qualifying pace is one thing. Now comes time for the race. We're thinking there was an opportunity for a little bit of rain in there. That seems to have run away, and it seems like we're going to have a bone dry race, which will change things up. 35 laps just on the fuel. You're going to try and split it down the middle, 25, fresh set of tyres. I get the feeling tyre wear is going to be a thing towards the back end of the runs here.
It will be, yeah, it absolutely will be. It's probably one of the worst tracks to have a big long race at because the degradation's quite high. With the fast sweeping turns, but Yeah, it is what it is. Everyone's in the same boat, as I say. But yeah, I kind of wish there was a little bit of rain to spice things up a bit. But yeah, I'm happy. To be honest, I'm quite surprised that I've got the pace because it's not my kind of track. I normally like the kind of technical low speed stuff. But yeah, just happy to have some pace and still have something to fight with for the rest of the season.
Mate, in terms of tonight's racing action and the race strategy itself, generally when we get into these endurance style races, fuel saving does become a big thing. Are you going to be trying to go hard? Is it potentially trying to keep the pack a little bit more bottled up and save some fuel as well? You know, give us some windows into your thoughts.
Yeah, I think that's definitely part of it. There's a lot of things that you've got to look after in a long race, but yeah, I think you just got to be on your toes a bit with potential safety cars, and you know, if the weather's still kind of lurking around, you just don't know what's going to happen. So you just got to be on your toes, I guess.
All right, and finally, floor's all yours to give a shout out before the race. Is there any thank yous prior to the race? Is there anyone that you're saying, hey, look, that's the guy I want to go out and battle with, and I get the feeling you're going to say Sabo and Lazarus once again.
Yeah. Hey, look, big thanks to Barry at MRP for helping me out quite a bit through my sim racing and my actual racing career. And then also thanks to Wayne for giving me the seat for the series, because if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't actually have the seat in the first place, since I missed the qualifying. So to be honest, like, I'm just lucky to be here in the first place. Fighting for the championship is another thing.
All right, mate, congratulations on another pole position, and shout out to the MRP Pole Position Award. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to step away for just a few minutes before we go to racing action. Take a word from our sponsors right here. Once again, big shout out to all the sponsors that make it possible here for the New Zealand Esports HyperFibre League. Cannot do what we do without all of the sponsors, and there is a tremendous sponsorship package on offer. Part of that comes from Chorus HyperFibre. HyperFibre is the fastest internet available with up to 8 gigabytes per second upload and download. That bandwidth ensures you can avoid lag no matter who is on your household internet. And boy, have I experienced some of those issues over the years. HyperFibre can future-proof not only your home, but your business too, keeping up with everyone's ever-growing data needs. With a heap of capacity, incredibly low latency, HyperFibre is the internet service for you. You get 3 options in terms of your broadband speed, which is certainly bigger than the options that are available over here in Australia, and continues to make me jealous of New Zealand internet. And, well, ladies and gentlemen, that's all from New Zealand HyperFibre on behalf of Chorus HyperFibre. And like we said, Reese, $5,000 in terms of total prizes that are on offer, and a good chunk of that does come from HyperFibre. So a big shout out to our main sponsor.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, the 5,000 New Zealand dollar total prize pool, with 1,600 of that reserved for the series champion, and of course, first, second, and third overall in the season will be getting trophies courtesy of this round's sponsor, Playtech. Really looking forward to seeing who's going to come away with those trophies. The warm-up is going to be advancing at about 5 minutes to go, so we can get into the racing action just that little bit quicker. And this is, like you said at the top of the show, Scott, the opportunity for the drivers to suss out the conditions. And as things stand, it still doesn't look like there's much rain on the horizon, but that could change by the time we flick over into the race session. For now, though, the track remains dry, back down to 27 degrees Celsius, nice and cool in virtual Victoria.
Yeah, and a typical Victorian day, or a typical in and around Melbourne kind of weather. Strong winds with mostly cloudy weather. It could break out into a huge hot ball of sun at any time, and it could be snowing before the race finishes too. That's just the way weather works down at the island. It's Siberia is not called Siberia for no reason. It's the conditions over at that corner. Dubbed by the marshals that have given the corner its name, because it feels like the winds are coming from Siberia. That's where you absolutely get blasted with no protection from any of the land over on the rest of the island. So yeah, some days, honestly, at Phillip Island, lucky enough to be down here and walk around a lot of the facilities. We were there on a sunnier day, and it was still brilliantly cold. And I tell you what, the penguins that are just down off the beach are that's a phenomenal sight. And the main tourist attraction is on the island, which is disappointing because the racetrack's, I think, even better.
Yeah, indeed. Love Phillip Island circuit, and you know, there's a lot of history here. Actually, you can see the oceans just right there. It's a brilliant location for a racetrack. But there's been racing at Phillip Island since the 1930s. There was a rectangular street circuit laid out around the town of Cowes, and held the 100 miles road race, which is now regarded as the technical first Australian Grand Prix, won by Lex Davison, the grandfather of Will Davison, and really fantastic to see that we have so much history here at Phillip Island Circuit, and more history to be made here tonight.
Yeah, big opportunity as well. I mean, just look at the drivers up and down. It'll be, dancing around hoping for something to happen. Hugo Allen's now back in the session and got his PC dramas all sorted back out. So good news for Hugo is that he's there. I did see some light hazing that came from the drivers about that though, which was basically quick start. Whilst Hugo's not here, we might much get a chance tonight.
Love those kinds of that kind of banter, that kind of joking around between the drivers. Well, Hugo Allen is back. We are within 5 minutes to go in the session. We should be advancing at any moment now, and we'll be able to get into our 50-lap run here for the double points endurance race of the season. Little bit of an onboard view from Antal Sabo here at the end of the session, and you really get a sense here through Lukey Heights of just how much the track falls away on the run into MG. Going to be seeing some big moves there throughout the race, probably most potentially on lap 1. It's one of the choke points of the track in a sprint race. I certainly hope the drivers are going to take it easy with 50 laps on the cards tonight.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing is when your tyres start to ail and start to go off, it's one of the trickiest corners to try and pull up for because it all just goes away from you. The hill, if you're in hot, there's no hill there to sort of pull you up. If anything, you're going to accelerate away and then you fall off. The biggest thing that's about this circuit is when you make a mistake and you run off, at turn 1, you can sort of gather it back up, but you've only got to be just off. At turn 2, you're gone. If you run wide at turn 2, it runs down and away the hill. That's how it works at most of the corners. Turn 1, you've got a little bit of leeway, and I mean a little bit. If you're offline big at turn 1, you just rejoin through the middle of turn 2, and immediately everyone sees you off, dives on the brakes, because they know that you're going to come back across the track is one of the big ones. It's a big racecraft. The other thing that I like about this place is it's a commitment track. It's not commitment in the same way a street circuit is. It's commitment in exactly what we said. When we fall off the track, you are massively off. There's no major saving it, right? So you've got to be committed to race right to that line, and if you're just a wheel track over that, all of a sudden you're in big trouble. It's not one of those GP style tracks whereby there's a bunch of runoff area and you're okay. No, there'll be none of that, and that creates a lot of moments in the racing as well. Righto, ladies and gentlemen, I can tell you we are getting set for a race start here for tonight on the round number 3 of the New Zealand Esports HyperFibre League, proudly brought to you by tonight's round sponsor, Playtech. You're looking to get yourself more of your PC bits and pieces so that you can join the sim racing world. Playtech is the place to go. Your MRP pole position for round number 3. He's dominated this all season long, and tonight just becomes another one. Hugo Allen off alongside of Corey Lazarus are going to make up your row number 1. On row number 2, championship leader Antel Sabo is going to start off alongside a Ewan Baker. Can Ewan get the jump that he needs to try and steal the run down to turn number 1? Cameron Dance sets his best qualifying performance of the season. Will line up alongside of Rob Henry. Both of these drivers with just a little bit something to prove deeper in the points. Stefan McCartan had a phenomenal round at Road America, and then he's sort of fallen by the wayside a little bit. Can tonight be the night he recovers? Xavier Simmons will start alongside of him on the 4th row of the grid. Rounding out our top 10, going to be James Jordan from Dylan Jordan, meaning we have a twinsies row number 5 race.
Yep, row number 6 is going to be Taylor Mitchell and Sam Sproul, with Dan Patrick and Russell Pepperell up behind them. Daniel Patterson is going to start in 15th place alongside Mandela Pluck, who's still looking for a good result this season, as it looks like there isn't an extended grid timer for this one. We're about to get going.
Indeed, we're off and racing, and there was a really good start by Dylan Jordan a little bit further in the pack. He's going to try and run it 4 wide as they get out and underneath the Melbourne Bridge. 4 wide on the run down to turn number 1. It's all starting all the way off down at turn number 1. Baker didn't get a great getaway. They're going to try and slot in. Lazarus still trying to go around the outside. Hugo Allen forced to cover. That's going to force Sabo to try and go the outside at turn number 2. Looking for it. Now he's lost the grip. Little bit offline. Loses the camber of the road, and he's going to be forced to slot into P3. Opportunity for Ewan Baker, and he nearly lost spots in the process. Now he's on the recovery mission.
It certainly is, but Sabo making the V-shape out of the corner. Got a great run down the straight through Stoner. Now here at Miller, he passes Lazarus right back for 2nd place, and it looks like Corey doesn't have a chance to fight back there. That little bit of side-by-side has given Hugo Allen a crucial bit of breathing room. Remember, the drivers need to race cleanly. They need to be careful. A little bit of time lost now is not going to matter much in the grand scheme of things. This is the endurance round of the season. They've got a long way to go.
But I tell you what, how good is the cold tire performance from Antel Sabo? Got a reasonable getaway. This is what you expect from a championship leader. Already ahead of his closest rival. Now he's just going to set the sights on probably some fuel saving on Hugo Allen. Close up a little bit. Then again, does Corey Lazarus just take this in the back pocket and go, all right, I've got 2 drivers ahead of me. I get a big toe down the front straight away. That's more lift off. That's more coasting. That's more fuel saving.
Yeah, indeed. That's a very good point. Shortening your pit stop is crucial. Rob Henry, meanwhile, having to give Stefan McCartan room through the final corner there. McCartan getting a great run through the penultimate turn. But this time, Rob Henry will have the inside line for turn 1. How brave is Stefan? And speaking of brave, a little bit of a dive from Xavier Simmons as side by side for 5th place. McCartan out braking Rob Henry into the 2nd corner there, and the KSR number 7 will have to slot back into 6th. This is quite the pack here now behind McCartan. Everyone in front is just skipping away.
And the big loser on lap number 1, the driver that failed to get a great getaway, was actually Cam Dance. Dropped from 5th on the grid. Now sits 9th on the circuit at the moment. Little bit of a blue as they got down there. McCartan ran it wide when they got down to Miller Corner. He's going to drop 2 spots now, so Henry will pick those back up. Dylan Jordan is absolutely on the move. He nailed that start, let the clutch out, nailed the launch. He's up a host of spots already on the hunt inside the top 5. Well, Rob Henry might just be his next victim if he's not careful.
Yeah, Dylan Jordan with a great run so far in this race. We're only coming up to the end of the
Henry
2nd lap. Oh, yeah, Rob Henry. Well, I mean, that's okay, though, because that kind of line through Lukey Heights, it's not really the worst thing to happen unless there's someone trying to pass you, because the corner is actually a little bit off camber as it goes across the top of the hill. You can bring it back in and straighten up the car a bit sooner for the run into MG. And it just goes to show Henry able to keep the position over Jordan there. Meanwhile, Cameron Dance now chasing down Xavier Simmons. Simmons and McCartan, the only 2 drivers in this group still occupying the same spot they started in, as Corey Lazarus goes fastest of all the drivers so far. Not by much, though. He's only a tiny bit faster than Allen and Sabo up at the front.
The big thing is much heavier race cars with a ton more fuel unloads the rear end of that car. All that fuel, remember, engine sits in the rear. Well, fuel can't sit in the rear then. It means the fuel's going to sit up front. So as the fuel load comes off the front end of the car, it's going to understeer a lot more off the throttle. Now Tamron Dancing does send a big old dive down the run down the middle of the corner, gets to the inside of Xavier Simmons. There was a touch of contact at the apex. Simmons is not going to quite let him slot back in. Don't think he's going to have much of a chance to fight back through this one. Simmons will manage to get back down the inside as they get to Siberia. Side by side at the hay shed. This is going to take some bravery, boys. Someone's going to have to figure it out. Probably lift. Simmons is going to try and go around the outside of the hay shed. That will take a slight lift. He's not going to have the preferred line. He will be on the preferred line when they get to Lukey Heights. Is down the inside. Bravery now from Cam Dance to stick it on the outside. Dance gets a little bit understeer as he gets up and out of the rubber. Is finally going to bail out of it. No, back down the inside at MG. Now it's going to be Simmons who steals that one away. Somebody better get out there and remind these guys there'll be 47 more laps left to run. I think they're still in sprint race mode.
Yeah, they certainly are. You saw Cameron get on the power early there in Lukey Heights. He was trying to get up the inside into MG and defend his the position that he had briefly taken there, but it just induced understeer. He was about to slip off the racetrack, so he had to back out of it, and that allowed Simmons to get right back past him. Brilliant little battle between these guys, but like you say, it is a bit early in the race for that sort of thing to be happening on the regular. For now, everyone just needs to find their rhythm. Looking a bit further back, this is the fight with Dan Patrick involved with Mandela Pluck. This pack is led by Sam Sproul and James Jordan up there, and it looks like Dan's going to have to go defensive here coming into the hairpin. Easy does it on the brakes, no ABS in these cars. Mandela really sticking it round the outside there. He's going to have a go at the inside for Siberia now. Fantastic little battle.
Yeah, we saw this last lap. It was Simmons who got to the inside Siberia and just couldn't stick it around the outside with a lot of grip from Dan Patrick. So we'll finally yield that one over to Mandela Pluck. Pluck's starting to cut his way back through the field. And I tell you what, Phillip Island turning it on in terms of Porsche Cup action. The other thing that goes through the back end of my mind is how much is this going to harm the tyres? We heard Alan talking about it in Manor Racing Products pole position interview. And for a few of these guys that are in the mid-pack, fighting early, and Hayden Kirk fighting it into the sand trap in the early stages.
Yeah, indeed. He describes himself as well. He was the mid-pack battler in 2023 in Kiwi Sim Racing series, but unfortunately he's going to fall a bit further back now with a mistake at Lukey Heights. That's a real shame there for Hayden. Meanwhile, the battle for the leads continue to draw up here as Antal Sabo will go for it here and try his best to skip away from Hugo Allen.
Completely different car balance compared to qualifying, and it's starting to come back the way of Sabo. You get the feeling this might be strategical though for Hugo Allen. Lazarus has managed to go with them. Baker is trying to stay with them, and he is just about a little bit deep, by the way, from Ewan Baker on the run through to Miller. Getting word though that for Hayden Kirk, it might not have been on his own that he ended up out in the weeds. There might have been some contact, so we'll jump over to the Playtech instant replay and have a look at what maybe happened to Hayden Kirk, and you can see it. He was side by side.
Oh. All right. Okay. So yeah, he was on the inside of the corner there, and I think just getting on the power to try and protect the position, but the car trying to get past him made a little bit of contact with his right rear quarter, and ultimately that change in momentum spun him around, and it's a very inconvenient place for that to happen. Not much runoff at Lukey Heights. Well, Kirk is in the pit lane, and he's been there now for the past minute or so, and I think he's going to have a lot of repairs to do before he can get back out on track again.
Yeah. Might just about be race over. Front splitter's hurt, front right's hurt. I think that's where he hit the wall. So that'll be his job for the next little while. Sabo's setting some reasonable lap speed now as well. So he is absolutely trying to go hell for leather in the early stages of this one. The chance of rain's still sitting down about 0%. We might see that vary as the session moves on just a touch, but at the moment, there's more that's going on for Nico Cordier. He's found himself out in the weeds down at turn 1, and there was contact apparently that triggered that. There's a number of slow cars in that area on the track, so I wonder whether that might have been contact with someone.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see on that. One more instant replay. Cordier involved in quite the battle here, and that was a little bit of a tap from behind from, looked like Brendan Partridge coming into the first corner. Seemed like Cordier was A little bit blocked up behind Daniel Patterson, and he was just lifting out that little bit of change in momentum. I don't think Partridge had much time to react to that, and unfortunately that's involved a couple of cars there at one of the fastest points on the circuit.
Yeah, the most bravery requiring section of the course as well. So, albeit they'll all settle themselves down and get an opportunity to get back into race rhythm. Pepperell's, I've got to say, if I'm looking at Russell Pepperell this week, I think he's a touch further down than he necessarily would have liked, because he was strong over the last couple of weeks. But this one, it might just be the faster flowing nature of Phillip Island doesn't work his way. Maybe he prefers the more stop-start of Road America or even Hockenheim.
Yeah, indeed. I usually expect Russell Pepperell to be up the front. He certainly is in the other series that I've seen him race in, but it seems like Phillip Island's not treating him too well. Up behind is KSR stablemate Mandela Pluck and trying to fight his way up through the field. Yeah, Pepperell down in 14th at the moment, still hasn't made any real progress either way in the first 7 laps of this race. Meanwhile, further up, this is the battle for 5th. Rob Henry still holding on to that coveted top 5 position. Dylan Jordan hasn't found a way past him just yet. I get the feeling a move might be coming very soon, especially with the kind of pressure that McCartan and Simmons are putting on them. Yeah,
they're sort of going to have to, I think, in the near future. With a big key, is you're going to have to go forward. And if you don't go forward, you're going to go backwards. See that how many times? In the meantime, this is the onboard shot from Dylan Jordan trying to preserve those front tyres on the run up through Lukey Heights. Get a little bit of a tow. And confirmation, by the way, from the server, Hayden Kirk's day is done. Will not be rejoining the race. So, unfortunate for Hayden Kirk.
Yeah, indeed, very unfortunate. But in this onboard view, Dylan Jordan's getting a very good look at the back of Rob Henry's car and that brilliant green livery. If you like what you see, maybe you can vote for Rob Henry in the Playtech giveaway for the best presented car and livery. Yeah, decide which of the liveries out there is your favorite. Go to the URL on screen in your bottom right corner. Submit your vote before midnight Sunday, the 6th of October, and you will enter the draw to win a custom PC case from Playtech, custom PC case design. So yeah, make sure to get your votes in, get in on that competition. For now though, seeing a big view of HyperFibre on the rear wing for Dylan Jordan, who's looking pretty calm and collected, I have to say. It's a very high stakes battle that they are fighting at the moment. Jordan's still one of the cars with the most positions gained in the field.
He's just chilled out, isn't he? He's just Sunday drive. It's not Porsche racing action where you're on the edge of grip. The rear end wants to swap ends with the front quite regularly, and you can't tell that there was just about contact from Stefan McCartan on the way into Lukey Heights right there. So he's getting a lot closer to the rear bumper now of Rob Henry. And you just wonder, you do just wonder whether or not there is some fuel games that are starting to be played by a multitude of drivers, because Sabo leads the way at the front end of the pack. Lazarus is just about losing these two at the moment. He's on the fringe of losing draft, so he's got to be a touch closer if he can hang on to the tyre a little bit more. But Hugo Allen's staying quite comfortably with Antal Sabo as it currently stands.
Yeah, I'm getting big Road America vibes from this. Remember how Sabo and Allen were battling with each other pretty much all the way through the first round of the NZ Esports HyperFibre League finals a couple of weeks ago. Let's see how long that battle ends up lasting. Meanwhile, news from race control. Daniel Patterson, of course, was the car that tagged Hayden Kirk a little earlier, and Patterson has been given a penalty from race control. It looks like he's just come in to serve that. So he'll have a lot of opportunity to fight his way back, especially if there is a safety car yet to come.
Yeah, well, that'll be the big key, isn't it? And we haven't seen anything that's necessarily warranted that yet, and there's been a little bit of field spread. Rob Henry is sort of the cork in the bottle, and I think he's going to continue to be the cork in the bottle in this pack. Just keeping an eye on. This train sort of goes from 5th all the way back to 17th, so we've got about 12, 13 cars now banking up into this one. So I do wonder whether or not Rob is overworking the tyres just a fraction, or if that's just the nature of the draft and everyone's just sort of banking up. There'll be a few cars for sure in this that'll be fuel saving, because if you can't advance your position, sometimes you do just get a little bit stuck. Well, fuel saving is the way you do it. Tire saving is the other one. If you can just underdrive your corner entries a little bit, you look after the front end of the car. So particularly with high fuel loads, that's a big thing. The undercut, I think, is going to be relevant. I just cannot tell you how relevant. I think it's going to be maybe 2-3 tenths of a second a lap, unless the tires all of a sudden just fall off the cliff. If that happens, well, then the undercut's going to be a lot more relevant. But if this pack starts fighting, and oh boy, look at how close they are. Yeah, undercutting will be relevant, but we've got to get to lap 15 first.
Yeah, and you can see Rob Henry's feeling the pressure there. Something that's also relevant is the track temperature, of course. The undercut will be a lot more effective in hot conditions, but it's the opposite of that right now. It's so cloudy over the circuit right now. The track temperature's actually dropped to 22 Celsius, and the air temperature's down to 19, as Dan Patrick, it looks like, has just lost a couple of positions. Back down to 17th, fallen behind Tyler Williams and Luke Bradley. Not too sure what happened there, but regardless, it looks like Rob Henry is getting a crucial breakaway at the moment. Dylan Jordan hasn't had a very good lap so far. McCartan is now really piling on the pressure.
Yeah, and it's just, this is the thing, isn't it? You just bank up, you bank up, you back up, you back up. Eventually something's got to give. And a few of these guys are sitting there and they're going, well, I think faster. I think we've got an opportunity to try and go and run down Ewan Baker. But if I'm stuck here, I can't do that. And laps are ticking away. This time by, we're going to have 10 laps finished, 10 laps done, a fifth of the way home. So, you know, now you're going to start thinking about, well, how am I going to get this job done? It's going to be over a 200-kilometer race here tonight as well, which is very, very relevant. That's, you know, it's going to sap something out of these drivers. We're going to be in behind the wheel in this race mode for over an hour, and something has to give at some point within that next hour.
Yeah, who can keep up the momentum, who can keep it consistent, just drive the car as fast as they can within the limits and not scrub those front tires too much. Phillip Island is a circuit where, you know, like we've been saying before, it's crucial to have a car with a responsive front end, because so many of these turns are right on the limit, as Xavier Simmons is having to defend there from Cameron Dance. Cam sitting in 9th spot. He still hasn't made much of a recovery from his poor start. Simmons, meanwhile, joins McCartan in not moving forward or backwards at all in terms of ultimate race position. Let's see what Simmons can do here with a little bit of space now behind him. Successful defense from Dance. Is there going to be any movement in the pack up ahead of him? All over the curb there was Rob Henry at Lukey Heights. He's protecting the inside very nicely from Dylan Jordan. So they'll stay in single file again for the time being.
I think Cam is just sort of, he's the driver out of this group that's sort of just sitting there and just watching along and, you know, giving himself every opportunity to undercut these guys. I think the fuel load's going to be very, very relevant. Tires you can get done relatively quickly. All of the tires are done individually. It's not sort of a pit stop whereby all 4 tires get done at once. It's not a pit stop where you do a pair of 2 tires all at once. I believe the timing on the Porsche Cup car is each of the tires individually. So who's done that practice and who's done that preparation? And who knows, yeah, is there actually any value in fuel saving? Because if you fuel save and it's less time than the tire strategy sort of takes away, well, there was actually no point in fuel saving. You could have been pressing on and looking for a little bit of track position as well. So that could be relevant. I don't think it will be. I think the race is long enough that you're going to have to save such a big fuel load that it'll cover all 4 tires. But, you know, if we get a safety car at some point, keep that in the back of your mind. Particularly at the moment whilst we're, you know, short on this race distance currently. Yeah,
indeed. Speaking of race distance, we're on the 12th lap here, and with 36 laps or thereabouts to a full tank of fuel, that'll give us around about lap 14 that we'll start seeing the earliest pit stops. Are there any drivers out here who would want to be pitting that early? I think at least a couple of drivers in this pack, all the way from 5th to 14th, will be thinking about that, because they can get some clear air, they can get a bit of an undercut on the drivers ahead of them. Sure, they'll suffer at the end, but in the short term, they might be able to get track position they can fight back with.
Yeah, the fuel load is the other thing. That's the big thing, right? Is that you know, fuel load does add time, lap time on, and if you think you're being held up more than that fuel load, that's where I trigger the undercut. But if you don't think that you're getting held up that much, yeah, it's a tough very, very tough call because the fuel differential is not massive, but it's enough. It's enough to be about 1.5 tenths a lap. You know, if you're not accurate, and it's extra heat in the tires as well. So extra load on the tires, it means that your tires are going to be worse at the back end of the run. But if you're just stuck and you need to do something, well, yeah, it's the only lever you really got to pull. So you may as well have a crack.
Yeah, indeed. I think if I was running all the way at the back of the field, sort of in the Billy Rowley, Dan Turner area, I'd probably just pit as early as I could and try to run to the end and hope that stuff happens in front of me to try and benefit me in the long run. But every other driver here, especially the drivers up the front, you know, I think the top 3 are going to try and run it as long as they possibly can because they don't want, you know, a massive load of fuel early on, costing them that 1.5 tenths a lap. You extrapolate that out over 50 laps, that's something like 6, maybe 7 seconds that you're going to lose overall over the entire course of the race.
Yeah, so you definitely want to run long. It also depends upon what the car balance does, because remember, as that fuel balance burns off the front, it's going to become a little bit of a more, you know, you get better direct drive, so initial launch off the corners is going to be a lot better. Lighter car as well is also going to help with that. But at the same time, you want a little bit more weight over the front just to engage those front tires a little bit more. Your brake bias changes quite a lot throughout the stint in the Porsche Cup car as well. It's about every lap and a half, 2 laps, you think about a bias change, and you just sort of read it and go, no, I could probably go another lap and a half longer, and then you might crank it back one click. So yeah, brake bias in the Porsche Cup car does relate to the fuel level and where the fuel level is at. It's very, very important to balance that, particularly you don't want to be locking tires at any stage. So
yeah, very sensitive tyres on these things. Ewan Baker, meanwhile, well, he's in a bit of a no man's land at the moment. The top 3 just up ahead there, they just disappeared from view in Siberia. That car in front of him is lap traffic. Baker is in a bit of a no man's land right now. He's too fast to be caught by the pack behind, but not quite fast enough to catch up to the leaders. The car in front of him is Nico Cordier, who visited the pits 5 laps ago. You know, just trying to get himself in a potential good position for the rest of the race. Still a bit too early to make the rest of the race without having to visit the pits again.
yeah, I think that's just because he had to. I don't think he had much choice. I think there was damage potentially on that car that that he needed to resolve. You know, it is what it is. Rough night at the office. There's not really all that much more he could do about it. Now he's just sort of stuck in this position. So get the head down, see what you can do. Play a safety car by ear. Get lucky. You know, that's really your only option. You know, you're stuck out there. The benefit for him now is he can run it all the way back out to lap 43. If there's no safety car by lap 43-ish, well, he's probably not going to be back in the race, not relevant anyway. So that'll be his goal. Run it out that long, stay relevant, stay close enough to the leaders that when they all pit, he gets back on the lead lap and he has a potential to be relevant to the end of the race.
Yep, that's the state of play for those way down in the field, including Patterson, who took his penalty some laps ago as well.
Simmons is close.
Oh, he is. Battle's starting to heat up here for what is now 7th between McCartan and Simmons. And it seems like Xavier is keeping Cameron Dance at arm's length as well. Cameron, I think, a bit too involved with trying to keep Taylor Mitchell behind him to really focus on trying to catch up to Xavier Simmons there. Rob Henry still the proverbial cork in the bottle here. Looking at lap times, Henry's last lap was a 1:31.0, 1 minute 30s for pretty much everyone in the immediate pack behind him, down to Taylor Mitchell. So still looking for some potential moves between all these drivers. For now, though, the opportunity's just not presenting itself.
It's a little bit more than that. The problem is the risk level that you've got to take to get a move done is just not worth the outcome, right? So what we're seeing right now is a bunch of guys that are going, okay, we're probably not quick enough to catch you and Baker. We might be able to catch you and Baker. Or I can sit here and save a bunch of fuel and I'm not taking any risks, right? So that's what I see that's really happening. And this is the aspect of endurance racing. Everyone says, oh, it's a procession. It's a little bit... It is, but at the same time, it's being played with how much you're using the throttle pedal. It is... We're not playing the race for right now. The race is being set up for about 25, 30 laps from now. And we're in this bit whereby I love it, because this is a section of the race that is such an art form, is you've got to do all the hard work right now so that you're in the race in 25 or 30 laps time. But if you don't do the hard work now, you're not relevant to that race, so what was the point of setting it up? And that's a real art form, and that's racecraft, where that level of racecraft really comes in, because you've got to have pace, you've got to know how to fuel save, and you've also got to know when to pull each of those 3 triggers. And that is a very, very fine thing to do, and the only way to learn that is by getting out there and just making those mistakes. You will run races like this, and you'll go, I'm quicker than all these guys around me, but in actual fact, the quickest thing I can do right now is to slow my pace down.
Yeah, it's like what Neil Crompton says: buy a ticket to the end. You know, this isn't a particularly long race as far as endurance races go, but you still need to play the long game here. And I think Antal Sabo will be looking to try and play some longer games here with Hugo Allen all over the back of him. Antal is the one punching the hole in the air here. Allen is being aggressive. He's pressuring Antal, but he's probably also taking the opportunity to save that little bit of extra fuel.
Yeah, I just think there's no point in Hugo Allen. If these two guys were to go toe-to-toe right now, they wouldn't pull away from each other. They're so close together in terms of their outright pace that, again, risk versus reward. All they'd be doing is just offering a huge opportunity for Corey Lazarus to come back into it, then Ewan Baker to come back into it. Right now, Lazarus has really got to drive the car hard to stay with these guys, and that's taking away from the ability he has to stay relevant in terms of strategy. So right now, by these two guys just sitting as they are on the road, again, Hugo doesn't want to lead. Why does Hugo not want to lead? Oh, he doesn't want to be punching the hole in the air. And he's not setting the pace. He's basically saying to Antal, you're in control of this race, and whatever you're doing, I'll do it, but I'll save more fuel. Exactly what you want to do. If Antal all of a sudden drops his pace by a second a lap, you go with him. He'll do exactly what he's doing. Why? He'll do it for 2 or 3 laps. He won't do it for forever, but he will do it for 2 or 3 laps, and then he'll go, right, I've saved enough fuel, now I'm going to push on. But you won't see that. It maybe come down about 0.3 of a second. They're in a really, really nice window right now whereby no one else is relevant to them. And Hugo's winning this race by sitting here, so there is no point for him to push.
Yeah, exactly. We are in the pit window now. On lap 18, we'll have 33 laps remaining of the race distance. And so far, we haven't seen any takers onto pit lane. Again, everyone's just playing that long game, trying to keep themselves in the fight until the trigger is pulled. I'm pretty sure most of the drivers are going to be pitting around the same time. There's going to be one of them who ducks out early, decides, okay, I'm the one who's going to throw up the flag and come in, and then everyone else will immediately follow them in.
I think probably the most interesting section right now is Sam Sproul's actually probably the guy to sort of keep half an eye on. And it's not. Oh,
no!
There we go.
Henry! Oh, dear. Looks like Rob Henry with a big spin there at Miller. And unfortunately, Cameron Dance running right into him. That's some big damage to the front of the number 6. And that could be an aerodynamic disadvantage for Cameron Dance.
It's also cop Dylan Jordan as well. So there's going to be a number of cars that are caught out in this one. And the Playtech replay is going to give us the story. I think Rob Henry's got major damage. I think he might be done. So just watch this. Remember when we're talking about fuel load burning out of these cars? A lot of heat in the rear tyres. Lazy little Porsche spin. How many times have we seen Porsche Cup cars do that?
Yeah. Unfortunately, that's just an aspect of driving a Porsche, right? The rear engine layout, the engine is slung out over the rear axle. There's so much weight in the rear of the car, and as the fuel burns off, that's a massive imbalance in the weight. So you enter a corner a little bit too quickly, you don't have much load on the rear. It acts like a pendulum. It just swings around. Rob Henry, yeah, he has got some damage here. It was a bit of a square hit that Cameron Dance gave him, so I don't think there's going to be too much in the way of suspension damage to fix, but yeah, a little bit of aero damage is mainly the issue. So Henry's going to take the chance here to repair that damage, and he'll also be able to fuel his car all the way to the end from here.
Oh, frustrating. We're just talking about how we haven't seen Cam Dance. We've actually started to see something out of Cam Dance, and a little bit of pace, a little bit of rhythm, a little bit of consistency, and then something just happens, doesn't it? He must have walked under several ladders and on the same side of the street as 9 or 10 black cats. I swear for Cam Dance, this series is just not going his way.
Yeah, not much in the way of luck. All he can do is hold on for now. He's probably going to try and stick to the strategy, try and last as long as he can in the slipstream of the likes of Sam Sproul, just to negate that straight line speed disadvantage he's just been lumped with. We saw our leaders just making their way through on a lapped car, and that has brought them all together now. And Sabo, Alan, and Lazarus will be battling hard for the next few laps at least as Dylan Jordan continues on. He doesn't look like he suffered as much in the incident for Rob Henry as Cameron Dance did. Speaking of Henry, he's been in the pits for quite some time now. It looks like there's a bit more damage on that car than I expected as, yes, here we go, down the start-finish straight. Oh, that is Sproul there who was trying up the inside. Mandela Pluck is going to get into the top 10 here. What a drive it has been here from Mandela, taking great advantage of all of the goings on here. Dance scrubbing off a little extra speed there on the inside. Pluck does not have the opportunity to fight back for now, but now Cameron is the one punching the hole in the air. He's got aero damage, he's got straight line speed disadvantage, and Pluck's going to take advantage up the inside into Miller.
Yeah, here comes the KSR car and just drives it straight down the inside down there. Dance is going to still try and fight it back. And this is the lovely thing about Phillip Island. You get to the inside here at Siberia, you feel like you're a little bit brave. Dance runs in a touch wide. Pluck tries to pinch him narrow. Dance comes away with the spot. Once more, so got better drive once again off of Siberia. Now through the hay shed. He's going to get harassed when they get down here to Lukey Heights. Pluck just had to lift out just a little bit. Dance is a touch in deep, but he's been running wide on that apex, not sticking back to it. That's a lot more accurate. Now he's going to run wide as they crest the hill. The run down to MG. Pluck has found some time, but I think he's going to be weak when they get down to turn number 1. He's carrying a big old parachute at the front end of the 992 for Cam Dance.
Yeah, absolutely. Tell you what, that whole sequence that we saw was started by Sam Sproul running wide out of the penultimate corner. He caught the grass in between the last two corners of the track. That brought Dance right into the battle. Dance had to compromise himself, and that brought Pluck right into it too. So Mandela Pluck, now the car with the second most positions gained in the entire field. Most positions gained overall, Dan Turner down in 18th. He's up 8 spots.
I'd just be starting to think, if I'm in Taylor Mitchell's shoes and Taylor Mitchell sits off the back of the next pack ahead, sits 8th on the road, I'd trigger that undercut now. We're 4 laps shy of halfway. He's in an awkward position. The thing I'd want to do is I'd want to get away from all of this squabbling that's about to go on. Generally, when there's a big shuffle up in terms of the pack leads, everyone starts to go, well, I think I'm faster. No, I think I'm faster. And it's where it breaks out. He can sneak off into the lane and grab himself a bunch of spots. Tricky pit lane to enter. How many times have you seen a guy in the barriers or in the grass on the pit lane entry here at Phillip Island? It's incredibly narrow as well, and at a very high speed section of the circuit. One of the, just that little bit of a hidden gem and a hidden difficulty level when it comes to the Phillip Island circuit.
Yeah, it's a very dangerous pit lane entry and very easy to get wrong, and worth noting that Race Control have issued a mandate in the drivers briefing that drivers have to keep their pit limiters on all the way down pit lane. There is an advantage to be gained by running without the pit limiter on, because the pit limiter, when it's engaged, actually ends up bringing you 1 kilometer an hour lower than the pit lane speed limit. And some drivers in races past have run the pit lane with the limiter off and been able to gain a slight advantage because of that. Well, Race Control are going to be monitoring everybody and keeping an eye on the dashboards of the cars to make sure the pit limiter is engaged all the way down the pit lane here at Phillip Island. And speaking of pit lane, we talked about the entry. The exit is going to be an issue as well, because the car pit lane exit here at Phillip Island spits you out right past the start-finish line back onto the racing line of the circuit. The motorcycle pit lane exits on the outside of turn 1. That's a safe option, but I don't think drivers will be necessarily allowed to take that. So when the pit stop cycle comes around, drivers on track are going to have to be careful of cars exiting onto the racetrack right in front of them.
Well, the big thing is when I'm in Phillip Island and I come down the start-finish line, I see cars in the pits, I always just stay to the right-hand side of the road. Why? There's no punishment for it, right? You don't get punished for moving all the way to the right-hand side of the road. You've still got a fair bit of time to get back across the left-hand side. You're just taking no risk, right? So that's just, as a driver, that's one of the first things I do at Phillip Island is I just look up, get the eyes up, just think about things a little bit, you know, no risk. and it keeps me relatively clean. But there'll be a few drivers who are just so focused on the race and everything that's going on that's what they've got to do. McCartan's not making any time to Ewan Baker, by the way, so that margin's now opened up to about 8.5 seconds. And now I think somebody just has to pull that trigger. We're so close to the halfway mark.
Oh yeah, Dan Patrick's going to do it. There he goes into pit lane, and you see just how narrow it is. Get on the brakes. Make sure that you slow down in time for those yellow cones. And here we go. Sorry, it's not Dan Patrick, it's Luke Bradley who's made his way into the pit lane there. So first driver, I think, to have a scheduled pit stop today. And now everyone else will be keeping an eye on that to see how he does. We're rapidly approaching the halfway point of the race, which means these leaders here will probably be looking to get their strategy on board.
Well, when do you pull the trigger? Because if you're in Hugo Allen's real estate, I mean, he's probably got the most fuel save. Lazarus is a wild card in this. He could do literally anything. And if they're going to run it long, Saba will have to be the first one of the three to pit. I think the comment that you made a little bit earlier on is that these guys are just going to run it long. It depends on the traffic. If all of a sudden they get a bunch of drivers rejoining in and around them, and Luke Bradley's going to be a really good marker here, he's going to come out relatively cleanly in front, which says to me, okay, there's not going to be a huge amount of traffic. But all of a sudden, if somebody falls off the island with looking after the car, so Bradley's just rejoined. These guys are coming out of the final corner. And he's sort of going to have about 5.5 seconds or so down the road from these guys. The big question mark is, does he take tyres? Probably. How long does it take that warm-up cycle? And if you come across a car that's on cold tyres, that's probably one of the more dangerous aspects because they just don't have the same level of grip you do.
Yeah, well, the pit stop for Luke Bradley was 37.8 seconds. And that tells me that he probably took tyres in that stop as well. He's going to have to wait a couple of laps for them to come up to temperature, but we'll get an idea of the relative pace when Bradley has a few laps on that rubber. For now, though, Sabo still keeping Allen behind him, and you know, it's just a waiting game at the front of the field right now. Long races like this, you see drivers playing the long game, like I say, and you know, they'll be waiting to make those moves maybe in the last 5 or so laps of the race. All of this is set up for the last few kilometers.
Just keeping an eye on Cam Dance as well. He's found a little bit more pace. He's actually starting to take time back out of Taylor Mitchell ahead. So even though he might be carrying a big old parachute on the front end of the Porsche 992 Cup car, he has still got okay pace. That's a lap car ahead. That's Nico Cordier, and the pack ahead of him is just made their way through and by him. So this will give us another sort of opportunity to have a look. Was it perhaps the lap traffic was giving a little bit of the dramas? Was Taylor Mitchell fuel saving? You know, was he just not accurate through the final section? I think he's actually made time again as they get down through MG. But the problem is he's going to lose it again in a straight line. 2 reasons: draft and parachute. But if Cordier sits where he is, Cordier could offer a really, really good opportunity for Cameron Dance just to find a couple extra tenths.
Yeah, certainly could. This is the battle a little further up. Xavier Simmons on Stefan McCartan. Now these two are the ones at the front of the pack, and Simmons looked like was gaining a bit of time down the straight there in the slipstream, but runs maybe a quarter of a car width wide at the apex of turn 1. It's not the end of the world, but it does cost you a little bit of extra time and puts a little bit more energy into the tyres.
Well, at this point in time, the tyres are relatively old now. So if you're going to split it in half, this race entirely in half, you pit at the end of this lap, 4 fresh tyres, and you're going to run the same pace in the first half that you do in the back half. Maybe, you know, a little bit extra draft, getting some free air. You actually want to, I think, overcut a little bit in terms of Porsche Cup car, but what that does do is your out laps, all of a sudden, the guys around you that pit that 1 lap earlier, yeah, they were slower on that lap, but they've got their tyres up to temperature now. So for 2 laps, you become really, really vulnerable, and you're defending on cold tyres. So if you undercut, you're running a cold tyre lap in clear air, but if you overcut, you've got to defend from those guys. If you can make the margins work and look after things, but you've also got to be mega aggressive in your pit lane entry. There's a lot to think about with this strategy. Porsche Cup cars, pit stops, tyre changes just make for really interesting races.
Yeah, they do. And the maximum interest level is yet to come as we see them exit the final couple corners. There we go. Trigger pulled by Stefan McCartan.
I like this. He didn't want to wait for anyone else to pull that trigger. The other thing is, I think he was saving a lot of fuel in the early stanza of that race, which means that this is going to be the shortest stop of this group. Gets out, clear air, gets rid of the cold tyres nice and early. He could also be suffering from a little bit of understeer at the back end of this stint. Great opportunity to do that. Pluck send it down the inside of Cam Dance on the run to turn 1, 2.
Yeah, but Dance is fighting back. It's all happening in the background right there as Dance manages to get the move done again. There's been an incident also at Miller. Luke Bradley fresh out of the pits as Cam Dance runs wide out of Southern Loop here. Pluck's going to have an opportunity here. Gets back the position through Stoner, but Dance will have the inside line for Miller. It's covered. Mandela Pluck staying in the middle of the road, forcing Dance to pick a side, and it looks like it was the wrong side of the corner for Dance. Bradley just spinning at that location just a few moments ago, so we might have to wait a couple moments longer to see what his ultimate pace is going to be. Regardless, they're in the second half of the lap now, and we saw that pit from Stefan McCartan, and it was a very short pit stop, 13.2 seconds. He hasn't taken tyres, I think.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's him just going, right, I've saved a bunch of fuel, I've looked after the road. And that's the big question. If you're not going to take the tyres, that means that you had to look after them throughout this first stint. Not only was he fuel saving, he's probably tyre saving as well. That means his race is going to be really, really short. I think Dance is going to pit here too as well. I think he can't be caught up in behind Mandela Pluck for too long. I think this is really going to hurt his overall race.
Yeah. Having said all of that, Pluck, roughly out of nowhere, has put himself in a big contender position for the top 10 as James Jordan now tries to pass Russell Pepperell and is successful. Pepperell once again having a bit of a middling race at the moment compared to the form we've seen from him in the past, but you never know. Stablemates at KSR might be able to stick in the slipstream of Jordan for a few moments longer before it ultimately comes time for them to pit. Well, now we're past the halfway point of the race, and it's just a case of wondering who's going to pit next.
And an interesting thing about, remember we were talking about tyres, well, if you can do tyres individually, 13 seconds might be enough for 2 tyres. So you might be able to take right-hand side tyres. That is going to give you a treacherous car to drive on that outlap, but the back end of this race is really going to come your way. So it's risk versus reward. You know, the least risky thing you can do is not take tyres then. Or is it take all 4? Because then you've got a car that evenly fits. Well, you take all 4, you lose 24 seconds. It's not worth it. So it's going to be the least riskiest thing you can do. Take no tyres. The most riskiest thing you can do is take probably 2 tyres. 1 tyre is a big bravery call, but it'll give you a very stable car on that outlap. And then once that tyre comes up, it's going to be quite good. But working that tyre in is not the easiest as well. And then which one do you take? Do you take right-hand sides? Do you take fronts? Do you take rears? You know, you're not going to take left-hand side tyres. That's the only thing we'll be sure of.
Yeah, absolutely. Phillip Island anti-clockwise circuit, but a lot of the most significant corners on this track are right-handers, left-handers, sorry, so right side tyres certainly going to be the prime tyre to take, but yeah, front or rear is the big question. You know, you get a front once it's up to temperature, then your car's going to be turning on a dime through the last corner, through Southern Loop, etc. You take a rear, then you probably allow yourself a little more stability and a bit more traction out of the slow corners. It's a bit of a balancing game to play. Taylor Mitchell, meanwhile, 7th place. He's been looking after the car solidly, hasn't he? He's been right in this battle here in the lower reaches of the top 10. And he's been taking his opportunities to save the fuel, save the tyres. Probably might be going for the same thing that Stefan McCartan's gone for and not taken tyres, or maybe only 1 tyre or maybe 2 in the pit stop. So he's still got a lot left to play for.
Yeah, he's run a very quiet race. Quiet, I think, is the right word. He's not been impressively quick. He's not been impressive. You know, he's not been majorly slow, and he's not been caught up in dramas. Those are the big key factors when you come to an endurance race. Very, very quiet night at the office. Hasn't stood out anywhere, but hasn't also gone missing. And, well, then again, if you want to win yourself a Playtech custom case design, you kind of want to stand out a little bit.
Yeah, indeed. It's a dark livery for Taylor Mitchell, but a very striking one nonetheless. And you know, Kiwi Sim Racing always come out with some awesome looking liveries as well. If you like any of what you see here, Make sure to vote for the driver with your favorite livery. URL on screen in the bottom right-hand corner. You have until midnight on Sunday to submit your vote, and you enter the competition to win a custom PC case design from our round sponsor Playtech, who is also providing the trophies for the top 3 in the championship at the end of the season.
Think about the end of the season now as well. You know, we needed to see a really, really bad round from Antel Sabo, and we haven't seen it thus far, touch wood, but you know, speeding on the way into pit lane, unsafe pit lane entry, stepping outside of those lines, nudging the cone on the way in, those are all big, big dramas. So ultimately, where he sits right now, if he wants to win this race, he needs to take a little bit of risk on the pit lane entry. If he's thinking championship, he might just underdrive the entry quite a little bit. I think he's not going to win the race. I think Hugo Allen's overdriven him in terms of the grander scheme of things, in terms of the overall strategy. So that means that he's out of sequence in terms of trying to win that. So then do you just bank championship points? So I think that might be the way he goes. I think he might just drive. It's not going to be a slow pit lane entry by any stretch of the imaginations, but it's going to be a minimally risky. And the reason for that is bigger picture. There's prizes on for being a winner here tonight, but the bigger prize comes at the end of the next round, of the final round of the championship, and that one's much, much more important to me.
Yeah, and also, you know, getting a good result relative to your closest rival in this round, which is worth double points. I mean, Hugo Allen, after his disconnect at Hockenheim, should have gone HyperFibre. Allen is currently 5th in the championship. Lazarus in 3rd is the closest to Antel Sabo, only 6 points behind. So Antel's really racing Lazarus here. He can let Hugo Allen go and take the victory in the final stages if he pleases. What he's probably going to be concentrating on the most is finishing ahead of Corey Lazarus.
Even just, if he can't beat Corey Lazarus, that's fine. Finish right behind him, right? Minimize your losses. So he's just led too many laps for me. I think Lazarus has had enough of an opportunity to fuel save enough that I think he should drop him. By the way, we're coming towards the back end of the fuel stint here. We've only got about 5 more laps at these drivers, that we think 5 to 6 more laps that they can go in terms of fuel. With some saving, could we push that at another 2? Potentially, but you're going to have to aggressively save to get 2 more laps. So I think we might see an extra lap from Hugo Allen, an extra lap from Corey Lazarus. But yeah, look, that's a lot of fuel. And a lot of static time, so I think he's going to pop back out in P3, and I don't think there's much he can really do about that. That's just the cost of leading the race sometimes. You want to lead, absolutely, for track position. If he gets a safety car at any point in time, that margin really works for him, but he hasn't really got that. Now the field's really strung out, so there's no real opportunity. By the way, watching Taylor Mitchell's times have just fallen off a cliff at this point in time, really struggling to get cars stopped and turned in the final sector, so I think he's in a little bit of trouble. So he's starting to fall back towards Mandela Pluck. I wonder whether or not his front tyres have gone.
Yeah, they may well have. Let's keep an eye on his corner speeds here, and also his slowing down rate for the hairpins, because the front tyres have the most load on them in the braking zones as the weight shifts forward. Yeah, at the apex, something like, 40-something Ks an hour. You'd expect a few more Ks an hour at the apex there. Well, looks like there's been a problem for James Jordan. He's just lost a couple of positions between Russell Pepperell and Tyler Williams. I think there's been a minor incident for him there at the Miller hairpin. Plenty of smoke in the background. I think that tells the story of what happened to him. Instant replay thanks to Playtech. Let's see what happened to him. So, he was trying to get the move done on Cameron Dance, and I think he just overshot the corner.
Yeah, pinches the brakes, old tyres. You can see him actually come off the brakes and try and get the car to turn as well. So he recognised that he was pinching the brakes, and he had to try and let that one roll a little bit more, but the problem is he was just too hot. And he's probably only missed that braking zone in terms of getting that car stopped by about 2-3 meters, I reckon. Not much more than that.
Yeah, it's only a very narrow margin in the braking zones for slow corners, but you miss it by a fraction of a second and you're completely on the outside of the corner. So you mentioned the lap times for Taylor Mitchell just before. Well, he hasn't pitted yet. Talking about the drivers that have pitted, Stefan McCartan, I've been monitoring his lap times as of recent, and they haven't been great compared to everyone else around him. we're expecting that he hasn't taken much in the way of tires, but he is heavier on fuel, and his lap times that he hasn't really gotten into the high 1 minute 30s like everyone else he was battling with us still running. So I don't know if the decision to pit as early as he did was the right one.
It's interesting to if you actually have a look at the guys racing is around in terms of pace. They is still a little short. 1 minute 35.50 for Simmons, Jordan 1 minute 30.490. So right in around that 130.5, dead on a 130 mid. Ewan Baker, by the way, 130.518. So his lap time is only 2 thousandths of a second quicker than Xavier Simmons' last lap time. Well, where's Stefan McCartan sitting all that? 131.1. So he's 0.6 of a second slower. Now, if taking tyres is going to be 5 or 6 seconds slower than that pit stop, it's going to be really, really tight at the back end. But if you're going to take tyres, you needed to pit very, very early on. You don't want to be hanging around on this right now. You need to sort of get yourself a little bit deeper into this race.
Yeah, and a point that has just entered my head, which is worth talking about, is the main reason why in races like this you see drivers trying to extend the stint as much as possible is as James Jordan pits now. That's going to be an interesting call to talk about. You're spending more of the race at a low fuel level. I think that is the crucial part here, because if you pit early, you're basically filling the car back up to a heavy fuel level, and you're spending more time with more weight on the car, more time spent setting slower laps. You run the tank out, then you're spending a lot of time on a low fuel level, and you're taking advantage of that, running faster times for a longer portion of the race where it really matters.
Well, it comes down to, are tyres relevant to that or not? And the problem is Stefan's... I do wonder whether or not he has taken 2 tyres in and amongst that, and that's the reason that we've sort of seen this degrade in pace from him. Because he did come out and about lap 28 after the stop, so post-stop, he has managed to dip back down into the 31s. He ran a 30.9, a 30.9, and then he was into the 31. So the potential for the pace is there, but all of a sudden it's just started to eke back out into the 31.3s. So yeah, I'm not 100% sure what's good, but it's just really, really funny. So that says to me that maybe Tyler Williams, who was the other driver, Taylor Mitchell, sorry, was the driver we're sort of monitoring in terms of his lap time. I think Stefan might have just burned off the tyres. He might have just been too understeery, caught up, and remember his 3rd car in that train? He might have gotten so much dirty air that the front end's just cooked off that car.
Yeah, maybe. I'm going back to take a look at McCartan's pit stop, and interesting to note, I don't see the car going up on the jacks, so McCartan didn't take tyres at all.
Well, okay. Now he's got to hang on to the car. Now, if I'm taking tyres, I'll put it to you this way. If I'm taking tyres in this race, the longest I'm running this is 30 laps. And the reason for that is I need that 20 laps on fresh tyres to get the tyres up to temperature, and then I've got about 18 laps where I've got fresher tyres with enough heat in them to show that pace. Once you get there, you can absolutely show the pace. So relative, Stefan's going to lose spots to Simmons and Jordan, I think, no matter what happens. And then these guys have got the flexibility to potentially take a couple of tyres. But yeah, we're just sort of still in that holding pattern. I think it's these next couple of laps where we'll sort of find out what's going to go on. But the fact that everyone's running long says to me no one's going to take tyres here.
Yeah, looks like it. James Jordan didn't take tyres. His pit stop was pretty much the exact same time that McCartan did, and Jordan was 0.3 quicker through pit lane as well. So we'll see what James Jordan will be able to do with, looks like around about 13 seconds or so behind McCartan at the moment. Remember, he did have that unfortunate incident at the hairpin earlier, as Hugo Allen is now starting to show his hand. He's all over the back of Antal Sabo and trying to make a move. It's lap 35, and this is pretty much one of the last laps that you'll be able to run with enough, with the fuel that they started the race on. I reckon maybe one of them is going to pit at the end of this lap.
Yeah, I wonder whether or not the tyres on Sabo might have started to go off as well. Maybe he's just overdriven the front end of that car as well, and that's maybe Hugo's seen something and it gives him the impetus. The other side of the coin is fuel saving all the way to the end. doesn't really have a stint. You want to close up and pit from right underneath the rear wing. So both of them are going to continue on. They're both going to have that 36 lap worth of juice behind them. But yeah, you want to be as close as you possibly can for when this pit lane window opens and you dive into the lane.
Yeah, indeed. Well, the slipstream is on for Alan. Defensive for Sabo into turn 1. And Antel's going to hold on to the lead for the time being. Alan does a bit of a crisscross on the way into Southern Loop, and that is a way that you can get a position, but I think with how close these guys are on pace and the state of the tyres, what we presume at the moment is Mitchell and Pluck come into the pits, more fall down by the wayside for the moment, but they'll come back towards the end. Just looks like Antal Sabo is on the mega defense right now, and this is all giving Corey Lazarus a big advantage.
Yeah, I mean, Lazarus got such a huge opportunity to just sort of close up a touch. I wonder about Ewan Baker and whether or not he's actually been able to make time on these guys as well. I just don't think he's necessarily been able to make bulk time. But yeah, look, we want to see these guys race each other hard. 15 laps left in the race. You know, all the hard work to set yourself up for the tail end of the race. It's now being done. I'll tell you what, I think Sabo is struggling because he just can't get the car to come back at the apex anymore.
It's just slow at the apex, isn't it? Was that a little bit of a touch there from Hugo Allen as well? This will be very interesting to see. Let's see who comes into the pits. I'm expecting all of them to, but Sabo is going to be the only one to come in. Hugo Allen and Corey Lazarus are going to go an extra lap here.
Well, this will be the big thing. Now what pace has Hugo Allen got? Because he's going to have a lighter car for at least one more lap. If he makes this into 2 laps as well, think about that. He's going to have a really, really light car to attack with for 2 laps. That'll be more than enough to do the overcut on Sabo. And the other side of that coin is what is Sabo going to do about his tyres as well? This will be a huge opportunity. His car's not up on the jack, so Sabo's not taking tyres. I think this is a no-tyre stop race.
Yeah, looking like it. The tyres are going to be shredded by the end, and those who saved them early on are going to really benefit here. Meanwhile, Mitchell and Pluck, their pit stops were 15 seconds each, and McCartan has undercut the both of them now into 12th spot. It's a long stop for Sabo. A very long stop. Oh, yeah. I think that was a bit of a late decision there from Sabo to get that done, but yeah, that has cost him a lot. Well, now the question is, will Allen and Lazarus take tyres, or will they try and preserve what may be a very big advantage for them?
Yeah, anything can happen from here, so I would say Allen's going to go very conservative. I reckon you'll see Corey Lazarus do the same thing. I think they'll just, you know, they've both been chilling. They haven't been pushing their cars at all, so... Yeah, and Sabo very wide as he comes off of the Southern Loop as well, so he is absolutely on cold tyres. McCartan's on him. Stefan McCartan's right on him, and these guys have got another lap as well.
Yeah, they have. It's all falling apart for Antal Sabo, it seems.
This means Sabo's going to rejoin. This is probably going to be about 6th or 7th spot potentially when he rejoins, because that's about where we're expecting McCartan to rejoin.
Yeah, oh dear. Man, you know, I was talking at the top of the show about how big the points swing is going to be with it being a double points race. Sabo's decision to take tyres there might have cost him the championship lead. You never know. Ewan Baker, meanwhile, comes into the lane. He's going to fall down behind Pepperell, and looks like he has avoided taking tyres, has Baker, so he's going to come out well ahead.
Now we just got to keep an eye on our race leaders and how late they go on. It looks like Sabo's starting to recover, starting to get some temperature and pressure back into those tyres, so the pace is about to start coming. Ewan Baker's got out massively ahead of him. Massively ahead.
15.7 second pit stop for Ewan Baker. And that's around 16 seconds or so that Ewan Baker has on him. So, you know, Ewan Baker was dropping off the back of the top 3 and running a long way behind them before the pit stops started happening. That tells me that that Baker's going to be safe in 3rd as Allen and Lazarus come in. Now, the question is, are they going to take tyres? I would expect them not to. They would have already seen what happened to Antal taking tyres. They don't want the same thing to happen to them.
Well, Hugo Allen just ran a 30.256, so he has absolutely got life left in those tyres. Don't you worry about that. Yeah, the big question is how much fuel between these two guys is needed, and it's all about saving and putting yourself in the right position. I just don't expect these cars to go up on the jacks. I think that was a huge error. Cameron Dance is now in as well from Sabo. He's just made a major mistake.
Oh, look at Lazarus, got the jump on Allen. That was a great run out of the box.
Yeah, good launch, didn't spin the tires, and the big thing was he saved a bucket load of fuel. He did a great job. Oh, Pepperell just dices his way through. So Russell Pepperell yet to pit, but now slots himself just in front of these guys. Could Corey Lazarus take a race win here? Is this how he wins the championship potentially?
Yeah, this is great. I'm rubbing my hands together in glee at this. What a pit stop it was from Corey Lazarus. Ended up running a pit stop some 2 seconds faster than Hugo Allen.
Now he's defending.
Yep, he is on the defense. Allen's going to bring the aggression out. Lazarus dives it to the apex of Miller, and now with Pepperell in front of him, that might slow him up and allow Hugo Allen the chance to get by.
It's also going to offer Corey Lazarus a bunch of tow as well. Dips the tire off of Siberia. We are going to get 12 laps here post pit stop for these guys to go as hard as they possibly can. Ran 37 laps on that first run. 37 laps before they finally came to the lane. Lazarus has got to have a look. He's got to try and get by Pepperell. Pepperell can't go much longer on this strategy. Might be feeding into the box, but for the moment, he's propping up our race leaders, or effective race leaders. Yeah, Pepperell's just about out of fuel. He had to cut to the inside. Couldn't get the drive off. He'll dive it into the lane. Everyone's now made their pit stop. That'll be it. The field will get cleansed. Lazarus has the race lead. But Hugo Allen says, no, I want another one. I'm not done. I've had enough pole positions. I've had enough playing second fiddle. I want to lead.
And he's going to lead into turn one. Beautiful move, and Lazarus, I think, yielding. He knows that there's still quite a bit of this race left to run. He can mount an attack some other way. They come out, well, that's Corey Crossan behind them. Corey's currently running in 21st place, lap down car, not relevant to the battle. These top two, they are so far ahead of Ewan Baker. That's an incredible gap. Ewan is some 12 seconds back from Corey Lazarus, so you know, it's just a two-horse race.
Sabo 29.660. I think that was the fastest lap of the race, and it's by 0.3 of a second. So absolutely took tires. He's got fresh rubber, and he's extremely quick at this point in time. He just took a huge chunk of time out of Xavier Simmons, and you know what? Simmons didn't take tires. There's a huge opportunity. Sabo's got to be aggressive. Quali laps to the end of the race. You were going to see 10 flyers from Antal Sabo.
And we know how good Antal Sabo is in qualifying. When it comes to one lap, he's certainly got what it takes. As McCartan will get past Mandela Pluck into Siberia. Pluck's going to try and fight it around the outside, but there's more drive out of the corner for the number 51. Remember, McCartan was the first driver of the top 10 to take a pit stop. So he has managed to get himself further up. But relatively, it hasn't gained him all that much. He'll be hoping that Dylan Jordan will have a few bad laps from here, having just come out of the pits.
Well, the big thing for Stefan McCartan is he was ahead of Xavier Simmons when he pit. So he's lost about 6.5 seconds by being the first driver to pit, lowering the fuel volume, raising the fuel volume in the tank has cost him in the realm of 5.5, 6 seconds, somewhere right in and around there. Remember we were talking about that very, very early on? Xavier Simmons ran 14 laps longer. That is what it looks like in terms of, so that just about matches up to the numbers that we were sort of running. So turns out I did take math class somewhere along the way.
Yeah, I've forgotten most of what I've learned, but it still surfaces from my subconscious from time to time. Well, that's the visual gap between Simmons and Sabo right now. Simmons, of course, having just completed his first lap out of the pits, so the time that we saw on the board from him last time, a 34.3, not quite relevant to showing his overall race pace just out of the pits, but could be a podium for him if he can, if something happens to Ewan Baker. But I think he's going to be worrying a bit more about Sabo for the time being.
Yeah, well, I think Sabo's taken about a second out of him since that pit stop for both of these guys, so that's how much the tyres are really helping. I'm going to expect Xavier Simmons' lap times to be into the 31s here, whereas Sabo's running down in the 30s, so that sort of gives you an understanding of what's going on between the two different cars, you know?
Yeah, indeed. Tires versus no tires. Hugo Allen and Corey Lazarus at the front of the field are running very equal on pace right now. Lazarus not with any huge advantage over Allen for the time being. So there's still a lot more to come from that battle. They've just dispatched the lapped car of Brendan Partridge as well. Lap traffic is going to be a major factor here in the last 9 laps of the race.
I think the big thing is Sabo was preparing for a race in the mid to high 20s, right up and around to 30 degrees Celsius potentially in terms of things. Or he was preparing for a race whereby we had a wet to dry race. He did actually have to do a tyre stop, but it was going to be a compound swap. Because if you have a look at that, and it didn't necessarily work out that way, but if we'd have gotten a warmer race, or we'd have gotten a wet to dry race, I think tyres, I don't think he would have had much choice. Because you have a look at our front runners, Hugo Allen just ran a 30.078. His first lap out of the pits was the mid-30s as well. So those guys are certainly running higher lap times, and Sabo's definitely got performance. But I wonder whether or not he set himself up for that race. The race hasn't trickled out that way, and he's just forgotten to reset that. And remember, the biggest thing for all the guys that are sitting along at home and going, well, don't you have support? Don't you have these sorts of things to help out? No. From a sim racing perspective, you are crew chief, you are spotter, you are driver, you are engineer. All of those factors, all in one person. It does get the better of people.
Yeah, certainly does. I mean, at the very highest levels of sim racing, like, you know, the eNASCAR, Coca-Cola iRacing series, and the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Super Cup, you do have that level of support behind you. You have these massive sim racing organizations funneling all of their efforts into race strategy, into telling the drivers what the best thing is to do. In something like this, a regional competition, you don't quite have that luxury. You have to be doing all of that work yourself from behind the wheel, and sometimes you can lose track of what's really important.
You know, the biggest thing, Sims, you look at race car drivers in the real world, what can they see? Just what they can see out of their forward vision and out of their rear view mirrors. That's it. That's all they can see. Sim races, we've got telemetry, we've got tracking, we've got lap timer indicators, we've got a whole bunch of different things. So you can build a reasonable race picture to sort of help alleviate some of that. I'm a little bit penalised at the moment. I'm in a new place and I don't have the space to set up my simulator. Maybe this weekend I'll finally get to cut some laps for the first time in about 2 months. What have I done to keep my racing addiction up? Well, sit here alongside of you, Reese, so thanks for keeping me entertained, keep me in the sim racing world. Number 2, I love spotting. I really, really love getting in and doing strategy and reading races. I just about got a teammate a podium yesterday with throwing a wild card strategy at him. But that's what I love about racing, is that when you get behind the wheel, there's so many elements that are going on. It takes more than one brain. You sort of jump into the race and you go, I expect this to be the best things. And then you've got to read this room. And Sabo's just missed the reading the room element today.
Yeah, it's a rare error from Antal Sabo there, but he is going to be granted at least one more position here as he's in the slipstream behind Xavier Simmons. Will get back into the top 4 with an inside move at the start of the lap into Doohan Corner. A fearsome turn, this one. A bit of camber on the inside allows you to jet your way through on the way to turn 2, and with fresh tyres it becomes that little bit easier. So Antal Sabo will have dispatched Xavier Simmons there. His next target is Ewan Baker, but with only 6.5 laps left to run and something like 9 seconds to make up, I don't think Antal's going to get back on the podium unless Baker makes a mistake.
Well, it's probably only going to take one mistake. He's capable, Antal Sabo, of maybe running a second a lap faster, 9/10 to a second. You run that out over the remainder of the race, you can get that margin down to about 2 seconds. That's the margin Ewan Baker's got to work with right now. And again, the other side of that coin is if Ewan Baker has an engineer sitting there, he can go, okay, this is what's happening. This is what you need to do. Just don't run it off the road. You've got yourself an extra half a second, or probably not half a second a lap. You've got about an extra 2 to 3/10 of a second a lap that you can give up and you'll maintain 3rd spot. If he had an engineer, does he have an engineer? Is he aware of those different things? Some drivers have the ability to make themselves aware of those little bits and pieces. Some don't. And we're going to learn that about Ewan Baker right here.
Yeah, we certainly are. Well, now we have the race of the season potentially for Ewan Baker there. He's missed out on getting a podium this season despite showing that he has the pace to compete for them. So this might finally be the chance that he's been looking for a fantastic race result. With 6 laps to go though, Corey Lazarus still trying to chase Hugo Allen for victory. It seems like Allen is the quicker of the two for the time being. Lazarus got that brief advantage with the quicker pit stop, led for a brief time, but now Allen is back out in front and running about 0.2 of a second faster than Lazarus.
I think what happened between these two guys is they played a little bit of fuel chicken. And Lazarus has gone, right, I'm not going to be able to pass him on track. I'm going to put my car in front and I'll just see what he does. And if he also has to go for a fuel undercut because he thinks that I'm going to do it and we play a little bit of fuel chicken, I might end up on the right end of the strategy. I might have put in just enough more that I can go harder a lot earlier. I don't think that's happened. I think Hugo Allen has gone, yep, I don't want to fuel save in this back half of the race. I'm going to fill it up for the right amount that I need. I'm going to put him right on Lazarus's tail, and then Lazarus has had to fuel save. I think it could be tyres. There definitely could be, but just from watching the two cars, I think Lazarus is doing a fair bit of lifting.
Yeah, seems like it. Speaking of drivers who have had just horrendous luck, when we talked about Cameron Dance having poor luck this season, how about Rob Henry? I mean, we know from watching him in other series how quick he is, and it just hasn't worked out for him, be it, you know, slight mistakes or contact or what have you. Henry's currently running down in 23rd place, a long way behind after spending 3 minutes in the pits due to damage, and it's not where you expect a driver like Henry to be. He's got so much skill behind the wheel, so quick, and it just hasn't happened for him.
Yeah, and you can sort of see a little bit of that on his face. He's still out there. The head hasn't dropped, though. He's still got the eyes up, you know, what lap times. And sometimes it becomes maybe just a logging laps kind of session. Maybe it does become, you know, a little bit of a testing session. What can I do? Am I going to tinker around with the brake bias? Am I just going to try and spend some time in some rare air? Am I going to go and watch the lap times that Allen are doing? This is a really, really long run in the car. You don't oftentimes get an extended long run like this in a Porsche Cup car. So taking data away from the event is sometimes the best thing you can very easily could have quit out, could have run off and enjoyed his Thursday night. Hasn't done that, so props to him.
Indeed. We're focusing on Stephen McCartan at the moment because he just had a lock-up at Miller and lost 2 spots. Taylor Mitchell and Cameron Dance are now ahead of him. And remember, McCartan, he's spent a long time out there, already losing a lot of time thanks to pitting what we think is too early. And looks like his tyres are really getting the better of him now. But at least he still has a lovely livery to show off. Remember, if you like what you're seeing, and you pick your driver with your favorite livery in the entire field, vote for them on the URL on the bottom right. Submit by midnight on Sunday, and you will have the chance to win a custom PC case from Playtech.
How cool is that? I just want to... I'm a big Porsche Cup fan, although I don't like this generation of car, but it does give us the option of going wet racing. I don't know, it might be a Porsche, might be a Formula 1 car. Yeah, it could be just about anything. Might even be a motocross bike. I'm a big motocross bike guy. So, what do you guys like out there in YouTube land? If you had the opportunity to get yourself a Playtech customized PC case, what are you getting on the side of your PC and why?
Yeah, that is a good question indeed. I honestly don't know what I'd get. It's something that I haven't really given much thought to. So, yeah, if anyone has any suggestions, absolutely go for it.
Giant microphone next to a left-handed boxing glove?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. Combine that with maybe silhouette of the skyline of Perth. Yeah, I think that'd be a good PC case, and I'm sure that Playtech would be able to get that done for me. In any case, Ewan Baker is going to have a run here and get past a lapped car, still in 3rd place, and the gap is around 14 seconds now back to Antal Sabo. So, man, it just doesn't look like Antal's going to be able to catch him at the current pace. Only 3 laps to go for Hugo Allen and Corey Lazarus up at the front of the field. Ewan spent this whole race in no man's land. You know, he's just been all on his own since about lap 4, lap 5. He was able to stick with the top 3 early on, but yeah, just a bit too quick for everyone else behind.
Yeah. I mean, the big key for Ewan's race that really set him apart was that he went with those top 4 whilst 5th on back squabble. So that was the big key. Has he been massively quicker than the leader drivers of that next pack behind? Oh yes, I think he has been quicker, but it's been tenths and little bits in it. So if he was stuck in the draft with those guys, they absolutely would have stayed with him. They fought, they squabbled, and you know, I can sit here and confidently say I am a very, very harsh critic of Ewan Baker. There is a lot that I see about him that I go, I don't really like the way he goes about his racing, but today is one of the better races for him. I think sometimes he finds himself getting ways to get caught up in other people's battles. Today is a perfect example of what happens when you don't do that. And Ewan sits in this really, really interesting spot whereby there's so many guys at his skill level. There's a couple of guys that are ahead in terms of things, but Ewan's sort of at the top end of this, where the bulge sort of starts to happen, where the larger group of the sim races exists. And there's so many guys that are in and around him, and he's an aggressive driver that he comes unstuck a little bit more often. So as much as I am a big critic of him, I do like seeing Ewan do well, because it's these times and I go, Ewan, you know, maybe you need to think about, maybe you need to remember this race. I think you do a little bit better as a driver, and I really, really hope that he enjoys this one.
Yeah, I certainly hope so too. For the time being, we'll see if Cameron Dance can keep Stefan McCartan behind him after having taken that position thanks to McCartan's mistake at the next proper corner that they're coming up to. Dance, I believe, still carrying a bit of damage, and yeah, he indeed is, from his earlier run-in with Rob Henry at the hairpin. So McCartan, despite not being as confident on entry, still able to keep the straight line speed up with that little bit of slipstream and a relatively undamaged front end of his car. It's all going to come down between these two for the last position in the top 10, and we're rapidly approaching the white flag. In fact, it's just been taken for Hugo Allen, who has stretched that lead out to Corey Lazarus to 2 seconds.
I think this is just Lazarus just going, all right, make the points, no mistakes from here, park the bus. Again, couldn't go with Hugo. Hugo's just been supreme in terms of pace post-pit stop, but at the same time, Lazarus has just gone, okay, what do we need to do here? We don't need to be aggressive. We don't need to, you know, we've got a massive margin back to Ewan Baker. Let's bring this car nice and comfortably home in P2. No mistakes. Because remember, Hugo Allen led the race all up until the last lap. We made a big mistake back at Hockenheim last round out in that first race. Lost the race victory, you know, so I think he's doing a little bit of prevention on that.
Yeah, and also to recover from finishing a lap down in race 2 at Hockenheim, thanks to internet issues. Once again, if you don't want that to happen to you, go for Esports HyperFibre, sponsor of this league. But a few corners to go for Hugo Allen. The MRP sim racing driver has put on an absolute masterclass here, and I think this has been a fantastic comeback for him after the previous round of the series, and he'll, combined with the issues for Antal Sabo, manage to get himself back into potentially the top 3 of the championship coming to the final round.
Yeah, I don't think there is a better moment than coming over Lukey Heights on the run down at MG, leading on the final lap, and you're nice and comfortable like Hugo Allen. When you pull it up at MG, you know from that point on, it's just about, I've got to make a big mistake to finish off the podium. It's such a relief. You crest the hill, you pull the car up nice and accurately, you just go, yes, I've done it. That's the big one. That's it. That's all I've got to do back over the line. Ewan Baker, really, really happy with this result. And you know what? I reckon Lazarus has got it. I reckon he leaves here with the championship lead. That's going to spice things up. Hasn't been the quickest of those drivers throughout the series, but he's been there and thereabouts, hasn't won a race yet, but leads the championship. What a story that is heading into the final round.
Yeah, what a story indeed. It's been a very interesting, intriguing NZ Esports HyperFibre League so far. and we've got a lot more to come next week. For now, though, keep our eyes on the rest of the drivers as they come across the line. A lot of space between many drivers in the field right at the end. The only real close battles were between Pluck and Mitchell for 7th and Dance and McCartan for 9th. Also, Partridge and Crossan crossing the line very close together for 19th and 20th. For the time being, Daniel Patterson, the last of the cars to cross the line. And then we'll be able to go through our results.
Yeah, phenomenal race. Phenomenal endurance race, because everyone's just been out there. They've been participating. Very, very clean. And again, continues that massive standard. Hugo Allen, what a standout today. Quick, consistent on the strategy, didn't make an error right the way through. Corey Lazarus is going to finish just under 3 seconds behind him. Then it's 18 seconds back over 50 laps. Think about that, 18 seconds back, but was over a 50-lap race distance here tonight. Ewan Baker will pick up 3rd space. Antal Sabo was quick at the tail end of the race, really had a crack at trying to drive it back, but took tyres, probably didn't need to. Xavier Simmons is going to finish inside that 5th spot. Dylan Jordan from 10th spot on the grid finishes 6th, but how about Mandela Pluck? 16th to 7th, gained 9 spots in the race. Phenomenal drive from him. Taylor Mitchell ran a reasonably quiet race. Great job from him. Cameron Dance, again, damage to the 6th car, and the 51 of Stefan McCartan finishes out of 10th spot.
James Jordan, meanwhile, losing 2 spots to finish in 11th place ahead of Russell Pepperell, who gained 2. Up 6 for Tyler Williams, meanwhile. The 240 crossing the line, a lucky 13th ahead of Dan Patrick and Sam Sproul. 10 spots gained for Dan Turner. It was a quiet race for him. Last car to finish on the lead lap was Daniel Patterson, and then rounding out the field, I mean, you got a feel for Hayden Kirk, our sole retirement, as well as Rob Henry, who spent a few minutes in the pits and finishes 2 laps down in a car that should have been in the top 10.
Yeah, tough races for those guys, and the big thing I think is for Hayden Kirk is that his day was done very, very early on, you know, only getting a couple laps in before off the track and bent steering. That always just puts an extra little bit of a sting in the table. Well, I can tell you, ladies and gents, we have got a chat with our 3rd place finisher from here tonight. Ewan Baker, 50 laps in a Porsche Cup car around the island. She's a challenging old affair. How bad were the tyres at the tail end of that one?
Honestly, a lot better than you'd expect. I mean, they started to drop after the first half dozen laps, but otherwise they held on pretty nicely.
Mate, fast and flowing nature around here. We were just talking, you sort of from about lap 7, lap 8, you were sort of just a little bit off in the weeds and a little bit off on your own, but it gave you an opportunity to run a nice quiet race, not get caught up in anyone else's battle packs. It just gave you a really, really good opportunity to just work on what you do best, just hitting those marks, lap time. Felt like a really good spot for you to run most of the night on.
Yeah, exactly. Honestly, that was the plan coming in, and I couldn't have asked for it to go any better. Like, I know I've not got the raw pace for those top 3 guys. I mean, I've accepted that a long time ago. They're another level, but I know, like, my battles sort of like with Stefan McCartan and Xavier Simmons. So the goal was to sort of slot into that little gap in between them and manage that perfectly. So yeah, really, really couldn't ask for more tonight.
Mate, how are you feeling after 50 laps? How's the face? Because 50 laps of endurance racing with VR on, a little bit hot and sweaty under the goggles?
Yeah, hot, sweaty, itchy. Generally just tiring. It's very hard not to fidget once you get into lap 40, 41, 42. Meanwhile, I'm sweating with... sorry, the audio's come through. Yeah, I mean, I'm sweating with Antel catching up because I know how fast he is. I thought, well, you know, a second a lap, he can get me. So, you know, bit nervous with that, but fortunately was able to hold it off.
Mate, finally, congratulations on the finish here. 3rd place out of this one. Big old swath of points. Who have you got to thank for getting it done for you?
Massive shout out to the team Kiwi Sim Racing and our sponsors Speed Nation, InspireNet, and Scott Technology. Yeah, massive thanks to those guys for all the support, and yeah, it's awesome to have you on board.
Mate, thank you very much for joining us. It's been a pleasure chatting to you here tonight. We'll see you again next week from the Nürburgring. Stuttgart special in Germany is always a grand finale to any Porsche Cup championship.
Thanks for having me, and hopefully, yeah, I can return on the podium next week too.
Mate, congratulations. See you then. Take one step further forward here, Reese, and I believe you're going to have our 2nd place finisher tonight. Corey Lazarus is on standby.
Indeed he is. Another strong race for you, Corey, and combined with the unfortunate pit stop error, it seems, for Antal, you might be in contention for the championship lead coming out of this round. It couldn't have gone better.
Yeah, thank you guys. If my math is correct, I'll probably be 2 points behind going into the final race, which is nice and close, which is what we wanted. Unfortunate for Antel, maybe just chucked a few tyres on or something like that. But yeah, we did a practice during the week and timed the tyre stops, etc., and it just wasn't worth it for the time that you lost in pits as what you'd make up back on the track with fresh tyres. So happy with the P2. Hugo was mega up front, and it was sweaty.
Yeah, I'll bet it was. It was very close for you coming out of the pits there. You ran a pit stop 2 seconds faster than Hugo. Was that largely down to fuel saving?
Probably. I was sitting back, backing off predominantly the whole race, saving some, and then on the old iRacing fuel setup, I went down to 0.2 of a lap to finish. So I thought, yeah, perhaps it's just a shorter fuel stop. But yeah, I don't know if I had too much for Hugo at the end. His pace with a light car is phenomenal.
Well, we go to the Nürburgring Grand Prix circuit for the final round. Another one of those courses that has a lot more emphasis on traction on slow corners than Phillip Island. You'll be in contention for the championship coming into the final round. The pressure is obviously on, but I'm sure you're looking forward to it as much as we are.
Yeah, absolutely. I absolutely love that track. I'm really looking forward to it. And I know Antel runs that when he does Nords all the time, so no doubt he's going to be exceptionally fast. Can't wait to get onto it. It's going to be lots of fun.
Yeah, certainly is. Is there anyone you'd like to shout out before we let you go, Corey?
Yeah, again, thanks to VRA for getting us here. Without them, I've got through so directly. All the Blackout OPR boys behind the scenes that help us during the week with testing. Very much appreciated. Simrigs, Blackout Electrical Solutions, Shunt's Bakery, and my wife for letting me spend the time I do on the sim. Thank you very much.
Turning into a very profitable endeavour here in the NZ Esports HyperFibre League. That's Corey Lazarus there getting second place. Remember, of course, Playtech providing some fantastic prizes, including a custom PC case with the round winner's livery design, and that will go to Hugo Allen. Scott?
Hugo, tonight's race win isn't just an endurance race win. It isn't just another strong result converting pole position to the race win. It's a custom PC case on behalf of Playtech as well. So, honestly, What are you more chuffed for, the race win or the PC case?
I don't know. I didn't actually know that I was winning that, so I don't know what to say. That's really cool. Thanks for that, and thanks to Playtech for putting up the award for the round winner.
In terms of things, that was a challenging race. We were talking to you about the requirement to look after the tyre, and the race was going to be a strategy sort of challenge as it developed. Ultimately found yourself on the right strategy in terms of not taking the tyres, and that became the difference between yourself and Antal Sabo. But Lazarus was on the fuel save game as well. It was tight at the pit lane exit, and in actual fact he'd saved enough to jump you.
Yeah, Corey did a really good job sitting back and saving fuel and saving tyres as well. So we both kind of somewhat had something to fight with at the end. I guess, yeah, it's not your kind of ideal race, just sitting in behind people to save fuel and do that sort of thing, but that's the game. And I wanted Antel to get by me early so that I could have the advantage of saving tyres and staying in the slipstream. So pretty much driving at 80% the whole first stint, and then it was a sprint race to the end. But yeah, I think I probably need to go back to school because I overfueled by about 5 litres in my stops. That's why Corey jumped me. But really stoked with the consistency, and happy to get my fastest lap of the race on the last lap as well. So shows that there was still a bit of tyre there to fight with.
Mate, challenging to run 50 laps around here. I mean, it's a hot and a sweaty affair. Like you said, it's easy when you can just sort of back the pace down a little bit, take a breather, look after all the equipment, but still the challenge of an endurance race. You know, we were in the sim there for about an hour and 15 minutes. That's a long time sitting in. You've got 15 minutes for qualifying as well before that. You've got to be doing practice laps before that. How's the bladder? I get the feeling that it's going to be a pop off to the toilet as soon as we're done here.
Oh yeah. No, it's yeah. You know what it's like. It's tricky, but yeah. No, it's good fun. I'm really enjoying it, and to be honest, even though it's a bit of a different format compared to the other races, it's quite, it switches it up a bit, brings a bit of strategy into it, not just about driving fast. It's more about looking after tires, which I quite enjoy. So yeah. Yeah, really good fun. But yeah, just stoked to have had the opportunity to race in the series thanks to Sim Motorsport NZ. Sim Motorsport NZ and Sim Ability and Virtual Motorsport New Zealand. I really appreciate it.
Mate, well, finally, congratulations on taking a race win. Big shout out to Playtech. We're going to be giving that a PC case to you as well. Congratulations on a race win, and we'll see you again next week. Any thoughts on the Nürburgring? How confident are you heading there?
I've done no racing there. I don't know how, but it's just one of those tracks that I've barely ever touched. So it'll be interesting. But yeah, we'll just go on, same mindset, and have a crack.
Head down, get some practice in, get some sleep, and we'll see you again next week.
That's the one. Thanks, mate.
All right, well, congratulations, ladies and gentlemen, to Hugo Allen. Tonight's race winner walks away with a big old prize that he certainly wasn't expecting. And Reese, an hour and 15 minutes worth of hard charging, not necessarily hard charging the whole time, but how good was that second battle pack that we had for such a long period of time? We talked about the issues for Henry, talked about the issues for McCart and Dance. That's just racing, though. But we had cars together on the track. We had strategy. That race kind of had it all, and we've still got one more round in the New Zealand Esports HyperFibre League left to go. And, well, it's heading to Germany. Like I said, it's Stuttgart special. This car, this combination, it could provide anything.
Certainly could, and the championship standings are really closed up as well. Antal Sabo finishing 4th, Corey Lazarus 2nd. That brings Lazarus to within 2 points of the championship lead coming into the final round, and Ewan Baker remaining in 3rd there. Hugo Allen managing to move up to 4th spot, 7 points in hand for him over Stefan McCartan. Wondering just how much these championship standings are going to jig up when we go to the Eifel Mountains for the next round, for the final round of the NZ Esports HyperFibre League. You'll be able to catch it on NZ Sim Racing TV on the relevant social platforms. Same time next week. It's going to be fun, and I can't wait for us to bring it to you all.
Yeah, one more round. Who is going to walk away with the $1,600 first prize New Zealand dollars? Who is going to be left to clean up the pieces? We're going to be racing from the Nürburgring. It's the site of Porsche Cup racing in the 24-hour. It's the site of a whole bunch of history from one of the oldest circuits in terms of racing, has all the different layouts, hosts Formula One racing, it hosts a whole bunch of racing right the year round. Who can move on there to Germany and claim the title? Join us next week as we go racing for the New Zealand Esports HyperFibre League. I've been Scott Rankin, he's been Reese Gardner. We'll see you all next week when we decide our champion.